The TV was still on. According to reports, the largest meteor shower in human history will land on Earth at 6 o'clock the evening after tomorrow. I stared at the screen, unmoving for a long time. A crimson meteor shower. Stray dogs biting people. Strange natural phenomena. Those words pierced into my mind one by one like knives. I raised my hand and pinched myself hard. It hurt. It really hurt. I laughed. Then I laughed louder and louder. It's not a dream. I lowered my head and glanced at my phone. May 3rd, 2053. 12:32 p.m. There was one day left before the apocalypse began. I leaned back on the sofa, my messy hair covering my eyes, my whole body looking as if I had just crawled out of a garbage heap. But my heart was burning. I've been reborn. I gritted my teeth, my voice trembling. Heavens, you finally opened your eyes. Tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon, the crimson meteor shower would descend. Everyone would look up at the sky, take photos, post them on their moments, call their families out to watch the spectacle. Then, a few seconds later, the world would explode. People would become zombies. Dogs would tear humans apart. Trees would eat people. Order would collapse. Money would become worthless paper. A life would be worth less than a pack of instant noodles. In my previous life, I started too slowly. I was trampled on, deceived, tricked by that fat pig Sue high into the zombie tide, nearly dying in the stairwell. I climbed desperately, killed desperately, and in the end, I only managed to become a level 5 ability user. Sounded impressive? But in front of true powerhouses, I wasn't even qualified to sit at the table. This life would be different. I stood up, my fists clenched so tightly they cracked. This time, I'll be one step faster, and every step after that faster too. I'll seize every opportunity. I want power. I want everyone to kneel and look up at me. I rushed into the bathroom. Hot water crashed down on my head, and I closed my eyes. Excitement was excitement, but I couldn't lose control. Every opportunity in the early stage of the apocalypse could decide life and death. I had to write them down. Not a single one could be missed. But just as I was wiping my arm, I froze. There was an extra mark on my right arm. Snow white, tiger whiskers, serpent body, fish scales, deer antlers, eagle claws. That thing coiled around my entire right arm, as if alive, emitting a chilling aura. I stared at it, my breathing stopping instantly. A dragon. The next second, a term exploded in my mind. Heaven-piercing mark. My whole body froze in place. The heaven-piercing mark. A sign of innate ability awakening. And as long as someone had a heaven-piercing mark, the awakened ability would be at least S rank. In my previous life, I only awakened after acquiring zombie crystal cores. An A rank ability, steel body. Very strong in the eyes of ordinary people. But in the eyes of top-tier powerhouses, A rank was something that couldn't even make it onto the stage. But now, I had been reborn, and I carried a heaven-piercing mark. Moreover, it was a dragon mark. I lowered my head and looked at my right arm, then smiled. I laughed until my shoulders trembled. Apocalypse. I'm back. This time, it's my turn to devour others. After showering, I returned to the desk, took out paper, and wrote down the opportunities. The biggest opportunities in the early stage of Subei City. I listed them one by one. Jinhai Tower, the western suburb cold storage warehouse, the underground parking lot at South Bridge, the first crystal core after the red mist descended. And also, after I finished writing, I lit a cigarette. Smoke rose. I looked at the note, my heart growing steadier and steadier. In my previous life, the thing I was best at was regret. Every day, I reviewed everything. Every day, I cursed myself for not being one step earlier back then. So I remembered these opportunities more clearly than anyone. Just then, my phone rang. Caller note, Sue the dead pig. I looked at the screen and smiled. Then I answered. The other end instantly exploded. Chen Xian, do you still want this job or not? Get back to the company tomorrow. If you don't come, don't even think about getting last month's salary, or this month's either. He was still roaring. Still that same arrogant, dog-like manner. In my previous life, he was the one who tricked me into moving documents. When zombies rushed out, he kicked me out to block the door. I was nearly eaten alive. I remembered that grudge for many years. Now he had delivered himself to my door again. I held the cigarette between my fingers, my voice very low. Suda hi. The other end paused. I smiled. You fat dead pig. Wash your neck clean and wait. Tomorrow, I'll personally chop off your head." There was silence on the other end for 2 seconds. Then he exploded. He cursed wildly over the phone, his voice twisted with rage, like a pig whose tail had been stepped on. I couldn't be bothered to listen. I hung up directly. Then I looked at the note on the desk again. I carved all its contents into my mind, then lit it with the cigarette butt. Flames licked across the paper. A few seconds later, the list of opportunities turned to ash. I clapped my hands. No traces can be left. In this life, no one gets to steal what's mine. That afternoon, I counted my savings. 135,322.5. 135,000. After tomorrow, it wouldn't be worth a cent. But for now, it could still be used. First, I went to get weapons. In the early stage of the apocalypse, the most important thing wasn't food. It was something that could kill. Zombie skin was tough, and their strength was immense. An ordinary kitchen knife would curl after a few chops. I knew a shop. On the surface, it sold pots, bowls, ladles, and basins. Behind the scenes, it sold real goods. The owner's name was Zhou Xiong. In my previous life, he later became a level 7 ability user. Not weak, but I wasn't going there today for him. I was going for the sword in his possession. Extreme Frost. I changed into a black short-sleeved shirt and jeans. Before leaving, I looked at myself in the mirror. The face was still the same face. Pale. Thin. It didn't look threatening at all. But I knew that inside this body was a madman who had crawled out from piles of corpses. I smiled at the mirror. Chen Xian. It's time to begin. The taxi stopped in front of old Zhou's general store. The driver, a middle-aged man, said cheerfully, "Young man, we're here. 42 yuan and 50 cents. I'll count it as 42. I took out 200 and handed it over. Keep the change." He froze. I pushed open the door and got out. "Hope you have a good day." After all, after today, happiness would become a luxury. I walked into the general store. Inside, it was full of pots, bowls, ladles, basins, kitchen knives, and cutting boards. A sturdy middle-aged man came forward. "Hello, what do you need?" Our little shop has quite a complete selection. I looked at the calluses between his thumb and forefinger, then smiled. "Really? Everything?" Zhou Xiong smiled too. "Of course." I stepped forward. "Then do you have weapons?" His expression changed slightly, but very quickly, he played dumb again. "Young brother, we do have kitchen knives and fruit knives." I stared at him. "Knives for killing people. Do you have those?" The shop fell silent. Zhou Xiong's eyes changed. He stared at me, his voice lowering. "Who exactly are you?" I spread my hands. "A customer." He said nothing. I walked around the shop once, finally stopping in front of the side wall. Then I reached out and pointed. "Behind this, there's something I want." Zhou Xiong's face darkened completely. His right hand moved slightly. I smiled. "Don't get any crooked ideas. You can't handle me." He stared at me. I stared back. A few seconds later, he turned and pulled down the rolling shutter door. "Come with me." A hidden passage opened behind the wall. He walked ahead. I followed behind. The passage was narrow and dark. He looked back at me several times. I knew what he was thinking, whether he should kill me here. I even hoped he would make a move. It would save me trouble. Unfortunately, he chickened out. The lights in the secret room turned on. The room was filled with weapons. Knives, spears, swords, crossbows. They covered the tables. Not bad, but still not enough. I picked up a long saber and weighed it in my hand. "The material is decent," Zhou Xiong asked coldly. "Which one do you have your eye on?" I set the saber down. "None of them." He frowned. I added another sentence. "They're all trash." Zhou Xiong instantly flared up. He suppressed his temper. His voice squeezed through his teeth. "Kid, are you here to cause trouble?" I looked at him. "Boss Zhou, don't try to fool me with this scrap metal. I want the treasure of your shop." As soon as those words fell, Zhou Xiong's eyes changed completely. After a moment of silence, he turned and took a long box from a hidden cabinet. The box opened. Cold air rushed out. Inside lay a sword. Its blade was long and slender. Its cold glow was like ice. With just one glance, my heartbeat quickened. Extreme Frost. One of the top 3 weapons on the Apocalypse weapon ranking. In my previous life, I wasn't even qualified to look at it from afar. Now, it was right in front of me. I spoke. "How much?" Zhou Xiong said. 1 million. I nodded. "I'll take the sword." He held out his hand. "Money." I took out a bank card. "There's 100,000 here." I'll give you the remaining 900,000 tomorrow afternoon. Zhou Xiong laughed from sheer anger. Payment and goods exchanged at the same time. I smiled too. Boss Zhou, you may not have understood. I'm taking this sword with me today, no matter what. The moment my words fell, I moved. One step, close range. One punch. Zhou Xiong didn't even see my movement clearly before his entire body flew backward and slammed heavily into the wall. He clutched his chest, nearly coughing blood. When he looked at me again, his gaze had changed. Shock, wariness, and fear. Who exactly are you? I bent down and picked up Extreme Frost. The instant the sword entered my hand, coldness drilled into my palm. Refreshing. Too refreshing. I put the sword back into the box and carried it on my back. You'll know in the future. When I reached the door, I paused. For the sake of this sword, I'll give you one piece of advice. Zhou Xiong stared at me fiercely. I said, tonight, stockpile food and water. Stock up as much as you can. He froze. What do you mean? I didn't explain. Believe it or not. Up to you. After saying that, I pushed the door open and left. Behind me, Zhou Xiong remained standing there. I knew he would believe at least a little of it. People like him were cautious. As long as he stockpiled supplies, he would live longer than he did in my previous life. As for whether he would be an enemy or friend in the future, that could wait. For now, Extreme Frost was mine. I walked down the street with the sword box on my back. In such a good mood, I wanted to laugh. To live this life again. The first step is done. Next, I went to the Triumph Grand Hotel, the best five-star hotel in Subei City. I still had some money left in my pocket. Might as well spend it. After tomorrow, bank cards would just be garbage. As soon as I entered the lobby, a female staff member came forward. Hello, sir. What service do you require? I said, Presidential Suite. She froze. Sir, the Presidential Suite costs 23,000 per night. Are you sure? Before I could speak, a harsh voice came from the side. Sister, yeah, he can afford a Presidential Suite? I turned and looked. A woman in a hotel uniform walked over. Oval face, heavy makeup, white shirt, short skirt. Her eyes were full of contempt. Qin Xian, we haven't seen each other for a few months, and now you've learned to pretend to be rich? I looked at her for 2 seconds. She seemed a little familiar, but it really wasn't important. Who are you? She sneered. Still pretending? We broke up just 3 months ago, and now you don't recognize me? Oh, I remembered. Wang Lily, my ex-girlfriend. We dated for years in college. After graduation, she thought I was poor and dumped me. After the apocalypse began in my previous life, I never heard any news of her again. Most likely, she died. I had no interest in wasting words on a dead person. I directly handed my bank card to the front desk. Swipe it. Check me in. I don't want to repeat myself. Li Xiaoyao reacted quickly and immediately took the card. Wang Lily stood to the side, her expression changing. Even after check-in was complete, she still hadn't recovered. I didn't look at her again. Someone like her might have hurt me in my previous life. Now, in my eyes, she wasn't even worth a single crystal core. In the Presidential Suite, I took a bath, ate a meal, and sat before the floor-to-ceiling window smoking. Subei City was brightly lit. Traffic flowed like a river. The crowd was like ants. They still didn't know that tomorrow, this place would become a slaughterhouse. I exhaled smoke and smiled. Hurry up and come. I can hardly wait anymore. The next day at noon, I finished the lunch delivered by the hotel. The time was 1:30 p.m. There was still an hour and a half before the apocalypse began. I carried Extreme Frost on my back and checked out. My destination, Jinhai Tower. 2 purposes. First, kill Sudahai. Second, seize the opportunity in Jinhai Tower. Just as I reached the lobby, Wang Lily rushed over. She had clearly dressed up carefully today. White dress, black stockings, heavy makeup, but her eyes were panicked. Qin Xian, I'm sorry. Breaking up before was my fault. Can we get back together? I looked at her. I almost laughed out loud. As expected, she thought I had become rich. I asked, you really want to get back together? She nodded madly. Yes, I really do. I said fine. Her eyes lit up. I looked down at her. Kneel. Bark like a dog. She froze. The people around us froze too. Wang Lily's face turned red, then white. I turned and left. I had no interest in wasting time. But after I had only taken 2 steps, a sound came from behind me. She really knelt down. And she really barked twice. The lobby instantly fell silent. Everyone looked at her. She knelt on the floor, raising her head to look at me, her eyes full of greed and flattery. I smiled. Humans. So cheap. I took a card from my pocket and threw it in front of her. There's 100,000 inside. Go book a presidential suite. Wait for me. Wang Lily pounced on it like a starving dog seeing a bone and picked up the card. Okay, I'll wait for you. I won't go anywhere. I didn't look back, because I knew she wouldn't be able to wait for me. In 1 hour, money would become worthless paper. The hotel would become a nest of corpses. She wanted wealth and luxury. So I gave her a ticket to the graveyard. I got into a taxi and headed straight for Jinhai Tower. 16th floor. Manager's office. Before I even entered, I heard Su Dahai roaring inside. He was so angry he was smashing things around the office, constantly swearing, cursing very viciously. Cursing me. Cursing wages. Cursing me for not answering the phone. The female secretary beside him was still coaxing him. Her voice was sickeningly soft. I stood outside the door and glanced at the time. 2:27 p.m. 33 minutes left. Enough. I kicked the door open. Bang. The door slammed into the wall. Everyone in the office was startled. A male colleague happened to be standing by the door, his face pale. Manager Chun Xian is here. Su Dahai suddenly turned his head. On his fat face, there was first shock, then raging fury. Chun Xian, you still dare to come? He rolled up his sleeves and walked toward me aggressively. If I don't beat you to death today, my surname isn't Su. I looked at him. The scene from my previous life, when he pushed me out to block the zombies, surfaced again. Back then, I was covered in blood. I pounded desperately on the door outside. He hid behind the door and shouted, Chun Xian, hold on. As long as you hold on, we can live. Then he locked the door from the inside. I nearly died. I remembered that image for many years. Now, I had returned. I placed the sword box on the floor. With a click, it opened. Extreme frost was unsheathed. The temperature in the office seemed to drop instantly. Su Dahai's steps halted. What is that thing you're holding? Carrying the sword, I walked toward him step by step. Manager Su, what you owed me in the last life. Pay it back now. When Su Dahai rushed out of the office, the entire floor fell silent. The fat on his 200-plus gene body wobbled, and his face was so dark it looked as if he wanted to eat someone. He shoved Wang Xiaoli aside, nearly knocking him into a workstation. The surrounding colleagues all stopped what they were doing. Some craned their necks. Some secretly took out their phones. Some lowered their voices and laughed. Chun Xian is finished. Manager Su is really angry this time. He dared to curse Manager Su yesterday. Is there something wrong with his brain? I stood in the corridor, watching Su Dahai walk toward me. His eyes were full of rage. Very good. In my previous life, it had also been this face. When he shut me outside the door, it had also been this face. Smug. Savage. Disgusting. Su Dahai rushed in front of me, his obese body blocking my path. He raised his hand to slap me. Chun Xian, you dare curse me? I'll beat you to death today. His hand came down, but it never landed on my face. I raised my hand and caught his wrist. Crack. His entire arm froze in midair. Su Dahai froze. I didn't let go either. He pressed down hard. Useless. He exerted more force. Still useless. I looked at him and smiled. Manager Su, why aren't you hitting me? Su Dahai's expression changed. What do you want? My fingers slowly tightened. His fat face instantly twisted. It hurts. Chun Xian, let go. Everyone around us was dumbfounded. They probably couldn't understand it. How had the Chun Xian who used to not dare talk back when scolded and nodded even when his wages were deducted, suddenly dared to fight back? I leaned closer to him. My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for him to hear clearly. I came to kill you. Su Dahai's Adam's apple bobbed. He panicked, but he still wanted to hold on. Chun Xian, I'm warning you. This is a society governed by law. My cousin is the chairman. If you dare touch me, your whole life will be over. A society governed by law. I lowered my head and glanced at my phone. 14:56. 4 minutes left. I laughed aloud. Su Dahai, your luck is truly terrible. The next second, I kicked him in the stomach. Bang. Su Dahai flew 4 or 5 meters like a sack of rotten meat and crashed heavily to the floor. He clutched his stomach, curling into a ball, only able to let out painful groans. The office exploded. Chun Xian has gone crazy. He really dared to hit Manager Su? Call the police. The female secretary Wang Meng's face turned white, her lips trembling. Chen Xian, don't act impulsively. Manager Su is the chairman's cousin. I ignored her. I lit a cigarette, then walked over to Su Dahai. He looked at me, and fear finally appeared in his eyes. Chen Xian, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I'll give you your salary. I'll give it to you right now. Don't come over. I bent down, grabbed him by the collar, and dragged him up. He was too fat, over 200 gene. But in my hands, he was like a dead dog. I dragged him toward the window. His legs kicked wildly. What are you doing? Chen Xian, what the hell are you trying to do? He started swearing again, his voice cracking. That wasn't ferocity. It was fear. I slammed his head hard into the glass. Bang! The glass cracked. Shards cut open his forehead. Blood flowed down at once. I pressed the back of his head, forcing him to look downstairs. Below, traffic was still flowing. Pedestrians were still walking. The world was still pretending everything was normal. Su Dahai's whole body began trembling. Don't. Chen Xian, don't do this. I was wrong, I apologize. I'll give you however much money you want. I took a drag from my cigarette and looked at my phone. 14 hours, 59 minutes, and 55 seconds. I said, the last 5 seconds. Su Dahai cried. He really cried. Don't. I'm begging you. I shouldn't have cursed you. I shouldn't have deducted your wages. Let me go. The surrounding colleagues panicked too. Wang Meng shouted in a trembling voice. Chen Xian, you can't kill him. I didn't turn around. 5. 4. Everyone froze. 3. Su Dahai's breathing quickened, his eyes nearly bulging out. 2. In the distant sky, the first streak of red light passed by. 1. The crimson meteor shower had arrived. The sky looked as if it had been burned red by blood. The entire city of Subei lit up. People screamed downstairs. Not from fear, but excitement. Look at the sky. A meteor shower. It's so beautiful. Take pictures. Hurry. The people in the office were also drawn to the sight outside the window. One by one, they raised their heads and looked at the sky. No one even cared about Su Dahai anymore. I looked too. Crimson meteors tore across the heavens like countless burning wounds. Beautiful. Truly beautiful. But I knew the price would arrive immediately. The next second, boom, an explosion sounded from the depths of the city. Then came the first scream. Then the second. The third. Countless screams. Downstairs, a man who had been taking photos suddenly threw himself onto the woman beside him and bit through her neck. Blood sprayed across the phone screen. A driver nearby had just gotten out of his car. His face turned bluish, his body twisted, and he suddenly pounced into the crowd. At the intersection, outside the mall, on the crosswalk, inside cars, one person after another turned into zombies. Orders shattered like paper. Screams exploded throughout the entire city. The office also fell completely silent. The colleagues who had just been enjoying the show all turned deathly pale. Su Dahai looked downstairs, and his gaze collapsed. What is this? Zombies. How could there be zombies? A fishy stench drifted over. He had wet himself in fear. I patted his head. Manager Su. What a pity. This world is about to have no laws anymore. He abruptly turned his head to look at me. In that instant, he finally understood. I wasn't insane. I had known all along. He opened his mouth, wanting to beg for mercy. I didn't give him the chance. My hand loosened. Su Dahai's entire body fell from the 16th floor. Ah! His scream moved from near to far. A few seconds later, bang! There was now a splatter of flesh downstairs. The zombies smelled blood and pounced over like mad. I stood by the shattered window, watching Su Dahai be devoured beyond recognition. There wasn't the slightest ripple in my heart. This was only the beginning. Just then, my right arm turned cold. The dragon-shaped heaven-piercing mark lit up. A deep blue light seeped out from beneath my skin, like ice fire burning in my veins. I lowered my head and looked at it. It had arrived. The awakening had arrived. An ancient, icy, ferocious power surged from my right arm into my body. My bones rang. My blood boiled. My heart felt as if it had been clenched by a dragon claw, then fiercely released. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the entire world was different. The moisture in the air, the mist on the glass, the flow of blood inside human bodies. I could sense it all. I raised my hand. An ice blade condensed out of thin air. Cold energy burst outward. The floor instantly frosted over. I smiled. Then I laughed and couldn't stop. Mythical grade. Ice Dragon. In my previous life, I only had the A-rank steel body. After struggling bitterly for 3 months, I barely reached tier 2. But in this life, in the first minute of the apocalypse, I had awakened a mythical grade ability. Ice. Dragon power. Dual mastery. This wasn't merely being ahead at the starting line. This was standing directly at the finish line, waiting for others to crawl over. Extreme frost trembled lightly inside the sword box. I drew the sword. The blade flashed with cold light, as if it was naturally one with my ability. Don't worry. I stroked the blade. In this life, I'll bring you along to slaughter through everything. A trembling voice came from behind me. Chun Xian. It was Wang Ming. Her face was deathly pale, and her body trembled. You killed Manager Su. You're going to prison. I turned and looked at her. There were 7 people left in the office. 2 men, 5 women. Each one hid far away, looking at me as if looking at a monster. I pointed outside. You'd better worry about yourselves first. The moment my words fell, crashing sounds came from outside the door. Bang, bang, bang. A rotten face pressed against the glass door. Immediately after, a second, a third. A group of zombies had smelled the scent of living humans and rushed over like mad. The office instantly exploded. Ah, close the door. Hurry, close it. Don't come over. I stepped forward. Extreme frost slashed down. The first zombie's head flew off. Second slash. Third slash. Blood sprayed out, freezing into a layer of frost the moment it hit the floor. A few low-level zombies were no different from tofu in front of extreme frost. I wanted to test my new ability. I raised my left hand. The moisture in the office instantly condensed. Dozens of ice spikes hovered behind me. Wang Ming and the others stared blankly. I said only one word. Go. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The ice spikes tore through the air. More than 30 zombies outside the door were pierced through instantly and collapsed in unison. Silence. Deathly silence. Then came the sound of several people sucking in cold breaths. I was a little surprised too. Strong. Too strong. Even a level 1 ice dragon could already do this. If it reached level 2, level 3, what then? I wasted no time. I walked into the pile of corpses and began digging out crystal cores. The probability of level 1 zombies producing crystal cores wasn't high. Out of more than 40, there were 15. The crimson crystals lay in my palm like tiny beads of blood. This thing was hard currency in the apocalypse. It could awaken abilities. Upgrade them. Trade for lives. I put the crystal cores into my bag and turned, preparing to go downstairs and continue killing. But after I had only taken 2 steps, Wang Ming called out to me. Wait. I looked back. She swallowed. You're leaving? I said, what else? Another man stepped forward. Zhang Daong, a senior employee at the company, usually the one closest to Su Dahai. In my previous life, when I was locked outside, he had been inside too. Back then, he said, don't open it. If we open it, we'll all die. I remembered that sentence very clearly. Now, he still dared to put on the airs of a leader. Chen Xian, you can't leave. If you leave, what are we supposed to do? I looked at him. What does that have to do with me? Zhang Dayong's face stiffened. We're all colleagues. And no matter what, I'm still your senior. In this situation, we should discuss what to do together. I laughed. Discuss. Zhang Daong wanted to say more. I raised my hand. An ice spike condensed. His expression instantly changed. If you don't obey, you die. Uffed. The ice spike pierced through his head. Blood splattered across the nearby workstation. Zhang Daong fell stiffly to the floor. Screams erupted in the office. The 5 women and Wang Xiaoli all shrank backward. I looked at them. Remember, this is no longer the company. This is no longer society. This is the apocalypse. You only live if I allow you to live. No one dared speak. I pointed at the zombies on the floor. From now on, you're responsible for digging out crystal cores. Once you find them, hand them over to me. Wang Xiaoli's voice trembled. How do we dig them out? I looked at the zombies' heads. Figure it out yourselves. Several people turned green in the face, but no one dared refuse. I turned and walked toward the stairwell. Follow me. Jinhai Tower had 21 floors in total. We were on the 16th floor. I needed to kill my way upward from here. At midnight, an opportunity would appear on the top floor. I had to clear the area in advance. In the stairwell, 2 zombies lunged over. I chopped off their heads with 2 swings, then turned to them and said, "Dig." Wang Ming and the others looked at the brain matter and nearly vomited. I counted down. 10, 9. Before I reached 8, all of them pounced forward. Disgusting? Afraid? Useless. If you wanted to live, you had to work. Very quickly, they dug out 1 crystal core and handed it to me with trembling hands. I nodded. Continue. 17th floor. More than 60 zombies. I rushed in. Extreme frost opened the way. Ice spikes harvested lives. 3 minutes. All annihilated. The 5 women and Wang Xiaoli followed behind me, their faces pale as they dug out crystal cores. 24 cores. Not bad. Just as I was collecting them, Wang Xiaoli stared at the crimson crystals in my hand, and his gaze changed. Greed. Impossible to hide. He asked cautiously, "Chen Xian, can these things make us as powerful as you?" The other women also raised their heads to look over. I said indifferently, "Don't ask what you shouldn't." Wang Xiaoli still refused to give up. "We help too. If we become stronger, wouldn't we be able to help you kill zombies?" The women also nodded along. "Exactly. Chen Xian, tell us. We won't hurt you." I looked at them, then laughed. The apocalypse had only just arrived. Greed had already grown. I walked up to Wang Xiaoli. His face began to turn pale. I reached out and patted his shirt pocket. There was something inside. Hard. A crystal core. I asked, "So this is why you stole from me?" Wang Xiaoli's expression changed drastically. "What do you mean, stole?" He grew anxious. "We helped too. There should have been a share for me to begin with." I nodded. "Makes sense." His eyes lit up. The next second, an ice spike pierced through his chest. He lowered his head and looked at the bloody hole, his face full of disbelief. I leaned close to him. "But you forgot. The weak have no right to split the profits." Wang Xiaoli collapsed. The remaining 5 women no longer dared raise their heads. I took the crystal core back from his pocket. "Move." From the 18th floor to the 21st floor. Corpses covered the ground the entire way. Zombies rushed forward. I cut them down. I froze them. I crushed through them. The 5 women followed behind me, digging out crystal cores. They vomited a few times, then eventually grew numb. At 6:30 p.m., we returned to the 16th floor. There were 182 level 1 crystal cores in my bag. Enough. I ate a few cups of instant noodles to fill my stomach. Then I pointed at Su Dehai's office. "I'm going in. Without my permission, no one enters." Wang Ming immediately nodded. "Understood, Brother Chun." Even the form of address had changed. Quite fast. I locked the door behind me and sat cross-legged. The crystal cores were piled around me. 1, 10, 50, 100. Energy continuously surged into my body, and the Ice Dragon ability devoured it wildly. When I reached the 180th core, there was a boom inside me. Breakthrough. Tier 2. I opened my eyes. The temperature in the office plummeted. Frost covered the walls. I clenched my fist. My strength had surged. My bones were harder. My senses were clearer. The Ice Dragon inside me seemed to have truly awakened once. In my previous life, it took me 3 months to reach Tier 2. In this life, only 1 day. This was the advantage of rebirth, and also the terror of a mythical great ability. Close to 10 o'clock at night, I pushed the door open and walked out. All 5 women were waiting outside. Not a single one had run, nor did they dare run. Wang Ming stood at the front. Her expression had changed. She was no longer that coquettish secretary by Su Dehai's side, but a woman who understood her situation very clearly. She lowered her head. "Brother Chun, I didn't know better before. From now on, I'll listen to you." I looked at her. "You want to live?" She nodded. "Yes." "Then be useful." Wang Ming bit her lip and took a step forward. I understand. She was very smart. She knew that in the apocalypse, beauty alone might not keep her alive, but knowing how to lower her head could. I didn't immediately respond to her, because at midnight, there was still important business. I only said, "Don't play tricks." Wang Ming immediately nodded. "I wouldn't dare." The other 4 women also gathered around. "Brother Chun, we'll obey too. Whatever you want us to do is fine." I swept my gaze over them. "Then stand guard. Whoever dares move around, I'll kill." They immediately fell silent. 11:50 p.m. I brought extreme frost with me and went upstairs. The zombies above had already been cleared out. The way was unobstructed. The top floor of Jinhai Tower. The wind was very cold. The moon was abnormally large, glowing with an eerie light. I looked at my watch. 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 57 seconds. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. Midnight. Moonlight suddenly descended, like a silver beam smashing down onto the rooftop. On the ground, 2 small boxes appeared out of thin air. My breathing tightened. It's here. In my previous life, I had only heard rumors. I hadn't expected them to be true. I quickly walked over and opened the first box. Cold air rushed toward my face. Inside was a milky white crystal the size of a fingernail. Clear and cold. Translucent. Like solidified moonlight. Moonlit tear. It could cleanse one's foundation, raise one's potential, and enhance one's strength. Even if a piece of trash swallowed it, he could become a genius. And now, I was already a mythical grade ability user. If I used it too, things would only become even more absurd. I closed the box and opened the second one. A black ring lay quietly inside. It looked ordinary, but my heartbeat suddenly quickened. Spatial ring. The only spatial ring in the entire world. In my previous life, it existed only in legends. I hadn't expected it to be in Jinhai Tower. I cut my finger and dripped blood onto it. The ring lit up with a faint black glow. The next second, a connection formed between me and it. A space of 50 square meters. No flow of time. It couldn't store living things, but it could store supplies, weapons, and crystal cores. This was an apocalyptic divine artifact. With it, I could truly begin plundering. I put the moonlit tear and extreme frost inside, then took them back out. After confirming there were no problems, I stood on the rooftop and lit a cigarette. Downstairs, the roars of corpses filled the air. The city was pitch black. Fires burned everywhere. Occasional screams rang out, then quickly cut off. I raised my head and looked at the moon, then smiled. Apocalypse. You really are addictive. At dawn, I returned to the 16th floor. The 5 women had already fallen asleep on the sofa and floor. Every single one of them was exhausted. I didn't wake them. I entered the office and locked the door behind me. Opened the box. The moonlit tear lay in my palm. A clear, cold aura seeped into my skin. I sat cross-legged and absorbed it directly. Strands of moonlight-like energy entered my body, cleansing my bones, cleansing my blood, cleansing my soul. The feeling was very strange. It was like an icy blade scraping away the impurities in my body little by little, and also like a dragon carving new words into my bones. Time passed. I didn't know how long it had been. I opened my eyes and looked at my phone. 2 a.m. My strength had increased by at least 50%. My skin was paler. My bones felt lighter. My perception reached farther. But my Ice Dragon ability had not risen to Tier 3. Something was wrong. The moonlit tear's energy shouldn't have had only this much effect. Where had most of the energy gone? I lowered my head and looked at my left arm. There, at some unknown point, a pitch-black pattern had surfaced. Deep, cold, like an eye opening in the dark night. My whole body froze. Heaven-piercing mark. A second heaven-piercing mark. I stared at my left arm, my breathing growing heavier little by little. Right arm, Ice Dragon. Left arm, unknown. Suddenly, I laughed. My laughter grew lower and lower, and also more and more insane. Interesting. Fucking interesting. In this life, is heaven trying to raise me to death? The pattern on my left arm was a mass of black mist. No dragon shape. No beast shadow. Only a fathomless patch of black. Like clouds. And also like a mouth slowly opening. I stared at it. The next second, a piece of information drilled straight into my mind. Plunder. Mythical grade ability. It could plunder another person's heaven-piercing mark and turn it into my own. I froze in place and didn't speak for a long time. Then I laughed. The laughter was pressed very low, yet I couldn't control it. Plunder. Plunder heaven-piercing marks. This fucking works too? What was a heaven-piercing mark? It was something inlaid by birth into the fate of an ability user. In my previous life, I had lived for so long, yet I had never heard of anyone being able to strip away another person's heaven-piercing mark. Among 10 million people, not even one possessed a heaven-piercing mark, and the ability awakened from one was at least S rank. Yet my second ability could directly steal it, turn another person's talent into mine. This was no longer simply strong. This was unreasonable. I looked at the Ice Dragon on my right arm, then at the black mist on my left. Dual mythical grade abilities. Ice Dragon specialized in killing. Plunder specialized in devouring. Add to that the memories from my rebirth, extreme frost, the spatial ring, and the moonlit tear. In this life, my beginning was no longer merely ahead. It was crushing. However, I quickly calmed down. The plunder ability was currently only level 1. For now, it could only plunder one ability, and trash abilities weren't worth taking. It could only plunder abilities belonging to those who possessed heaven-piercing marks. That made me even more satisfied instead. Good. Ordinary goods aren't worthy of entering my body. I leaned back in the chair and slowly exhaled. There were too many surprises. But the more things were like this, the less I could afford to get carried away. In the early stage of the apocalypse, resources were scattered everywhere. Whoever was fast got to eat meat. Once the government and military regions reacted, once the major safe zones were established, resources would be monopolized. At that point, getting things would be much more troublesome. I didn't want to live a second life only to be controlled by others again. Military region? Families? Order? Whoever dared suppress me, I would flip their table. In the latter half of the night, I locked the office door and slept for a while leaning against the chair. My sleep was very light. In the apocalypse, people who slept too deeply usually died quickly. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing wasn't zombies. It was the person who called you brother yesterday. At daybreak, sunlight shone through the window onto my face. I opened my eyes. I had just stretched when urgent knocking sounded from outside the door. Bang, bang, bang. Brother Chun, open the door, quick. There are zombies. So many zombies. It was Wang Ming. Her voice trembled terribly. Outside, there were also the cries of the other women. I stood up and listened. Footsteps. Roars. Quite a few. Probably 30 or 40. I walked to the door, but wasn't in a hurry to open it. Outside, Wang Ming sounded like she was about to cry. Brother Chun, please. Save us. They're here. I suddenly remembered my previous life. It had also been a door. I had been shut outside by Su Dahai. Zombies had rushed up from the stairwell. I pounded on the door, shouting until my throat bled. The people inside were laughing. Su Dahai laughed. Zhang Daong laughed. Wang Ming laughed too. Back then, she said, don't open the door. If we open it, we'll all die. Later, with no other choice, I jumped out the window. Hanging onto the air conditioner unit outside the 15th floor, I barely managed to survive. The wind that day was very cold. I remembered it for a lifetime. Now, it was their turn to knock on the door. I lit a cigarette and asked with a smile, Secretary Wang, are there a lot of zombies? Outside the door, it instantly went quiet for a moment. Then Wang Ming shouted as if grabbing onto a lifeline. A lot. Too many. Brother Chun, hurry and save us. I said, Secretary Wang, you're very smart. She said urgently, Brother Chun, I'll listen to you from now on. I really will. I exhaled smoke. Unfortunately, you're too smart. A woman like you, I don't dare keep. Everyone outside froze. The next second, Wang Ming's voice changed. Chen Xian, you can't do this. You're refusing to save people from death. I curse you to die a miserable death. She broke down. The other women also began crying, pounding on the door, begging, and cursing. I listened without moving. A curse? If that sort of thing worked, I would have died 10,000 times over in my previous life. Soon, the zombies arrived. Screams exploded. Sounds of tearing and biting. Bones cracking. Crying. Calls for help. All mixed together. A few minutes later, outside fell silent. I finished the last drag of my cigarette and opened the door. The smell of blood rushed toward me. The floor was covered in blood. Arms. Legs. Scattered organs. Several zombies were crouched on the ground feeding. Hearing the door open, they all turned their heads toward me in unison. I looked at them. Full. The zombies lunged. I didn't move. Ice spikes condensed beside me and instantly pierced through the zombies in the front row. Frost spread along the ground. Crack, crack, crack. The remaining zombies were all frozen in place. Their movements halted midair. I snapped my fingers. Shatter. Bang. Dozens of zombies shattered into chunks of ice. I walked over and dug out 12 crystal cores. All tier 1. Not very useful, but even a mosquito leg was still meat. After putting them into the spatial ring, I went downstairs. From the 16th floor to the first, waves of zombies charged up at me. I killed my way down. Ice spikes opened the path. Extreme frost finished them off. Not one could get close. By the time I reached the first floor, there were another 210 tier 1 crystal cores in my spatial ring. Not bad, but not enough. Mythical-grade abilities consumed far too many resources. If I wanted to rush from Tier 2 to Tier 3 using Tier 1 crystal cores, I would need at least several thousand. Too slow. I had to find Tier 2 zombies or greater opportunities. Just as I walked out of Jinhai Tower, I heard someone calling from the coffee shop beside it. Young man. Wait. I turned my head. A pot-bellied middle-aged man ran out, his face full of ingratiation. Behind him, inside the coffee shop, a group of people in suits were hiding. I frowned. What? The fat man panted and said, Our President Su thinks your strength is decent and wants to invite you to escort us to the safe zone. President Su is willing to pay 10 million. I looked at him as if looking at an idiot. On the second day of the apocalypse, he was still talking about money. 10 million? Too stiff even to wipe my ass with. I turned and left. Not interested. The fat man grew anxious. Wait. At that moment, a young man wearing gold-rimmed glasses walked out. His suit was somewhat dirty, but he still held himself with that posture, as if the apocalypse hadn't smashed down onto his head. I'll offer 100 million. He looked at me, very confident. My name is Su Hao, the crown prince of the Su group. You should have heard of me. My steps stopped. Su Hao? Of course I had heard of him. In my previous life, he was one of the top powerhouses of the 4th Military Region. A Tier 8 ability user. S-rank Mystic Spirit True Flame. Refined on the outside, rotten to the core inside. He forced good women into prostitution, sold arms, and had killed many people. His reputation was foul, but he had never provoked me. So originally, I hadn't planned to bother with him. I glanced at him. Not interested. Su Hao's face darkened. 100 million isn't enough. 1 billion. I continued walking forward. His voice rose. Qinshan, right? Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Just then, 2 military jeeps drove over. The doors opened. 8 soldiers got out, fully armed. The leader was an officer with an upright figure and sharp eyes. He walked up to Su Hao and saluted. Young Master Su. I am Xiang Tianqing, platoon leader of the 2nd Platoon, Special Operations Company. I have been ordered to escort you to the safe zone. Su Hao's eyes lit up. My grandfather sent you? Xiang Tianqing nodded. Elder Su did. Su Hao immediately smiled. Very smugly. The executives in the coffee shop also grew excited and rushed toward the vehicles. But Xiang Tianqing said coldly, Apologies. I am only here to pick up young Master Su. That group of people instantly turned pale. The fat man, Wang Fuhai, knelt on the spot. President Su, I've followed you for so long. You can't abandon me. Su Hao didn't even look at him. Whether you live or die, what does that have to do with me? That one sentence sent all of them into an ice cellar. I stood nearby, watching very calmly. This was Su Hao, a thing wearing human skin. Before getting into the vehicle, Su Hao suddenly stopped again. He walked up to me and pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses. Kid, I'll remember you. Next time, don't fall into my hands. I looked at him. Are you threatening me? With soldiers backing him up, Su Hao immediately regained his courage. He sneered. So what if I'm threatening you? What the hell are you? I smiled. Originally, I really hadn't intended to kill him, but he insisted on stretching his neck over. If I didn't cut it, that would seem impolite. I raised my hand. An ice spike condensed. Su Hao's expression changed abruptly. The ice spike tore through the air. Whoosh. It was so fast he had no chance to dodge. But just as the ice spike was about to pierce through his head, Xiang Tianqing moved. His speed surged dramatically, and he pulled Su Hao sideways in a flash. The ice spike smashed into the ground, blasting out a patch of frost. Su Hao collapsed on the ground, gasping heavily. So close. Just a little more, and his head would have been gone. I looked at Xiang Tianqing. Wind sprint. A-rank ability. The military region moves pretty fast. Xiang Tianqing's pupils shrank. You know my ability? Of course I knew. In my previous life, he had been the most loyal dog at Su Hao's side. A Tier 6 ability user. He relied on speed to make a living. His reputation was not small. Unfortunately, right now, he was only Tier 1. I said move aside. Otherwise, all of you will die. Su Hao immediately grabbed Xiang Tianqing's clothes. Platoon leader Xiang. Protect me. As long as you get me to the safe zone, I'll have my grandfather promote you. Xiang Tianqing's gaze shifted. He had come to rescue Su Hao in the first place because he wanted to connect with the Su family. So he raised his hand. Everyone, Raise weapons. The 8 soldiers raised their guns at the same time. The muzzles aimed at me. Xiang Tianqing said in a deep voice, I know you're strong. But can you block bullets? Su Hao seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Open fire. Kill him. Hurry and kill him. Xiang Tianqing hesitated for 1 second, then gritted his teeth. Fire. Rat-a-tat-tat. Bullets poured toward me. I stood in place, not even dodging. An ice wall rose instantly. Thick. Transparent. Bone-chilling. The bullets struck it, clattering down all over the ground. Half a minute later, the gunfire stopped. The ice wall was completely unharmed. Everyone was dumbfounded. The smugness on Su Hao's face froze. Xiang Tianqing's hands were trembling too. I dismissed the ice wall and looked at them. Finished. No one spoke. I raised my hand. Hundreds of ice spikes hovered behind me. Then it's my turn. Xiang Tianqing's face turned deathly pale. Retreat. Too late. The ice spikes shot out violently. The 8 soldiers fell instantly. Their blood had just sprayed out before freezing. Xiang Tianqing dragged Su Hao and dodged frantically. His speed was indeed fast. But carrying Su Hao, a burden, he couldn't move that fast. One ice spike pierced through his right arm. Cold energy drilled in through the wound. Half his body immediately stiffened. Su Hao collapsed in terror. Don't kill me. Chen Xian, I was wrong. I'll absolutely never cause trouble for you again. Xiang Tianqing also panted heavily. Sir, this matter was our fault. How about we let it end here? I walked over. When you could kill me just now, none of you thought about letting it end. Su Hao knelt on the ground, tears and snot streaming down his face. My grandfather is Su Yuanting. Whatever you want, I can give it to you. I crouched down and looked at him. I want you dead. Su Hao's pupils contracted violently. No. An ice spike pierced through his head. His voice stopped abruptly. Su Hao collapsed, his eyes still open. Unwilling. Shocked. As if even at death, he still couldn't understand how someone like him could die on the second day of the apocalypse. Xiang Tianqing looked at Su Hao's corpse, and even his voice changed. You killed Su Hao. Su Yuanting won't let you go? I looked at him. How would he know I killed him? Xiang Tianqing froze. I raised my hand. An ice spike pierced through his chest. Only the dead can keep secrets. Xiang Tianqing collapsed, no longer breathing. Nearby, Wang Fuhai and those executives had already been frightened into kneeling across the ground. Why, young sir? We have nothing to do with Su Hao. We couldn't wait for him to die. Really, we didn't see anything. I smiled. Good. Then you can leave. The group felt as if they had received a pardon and hurriedly cowed out. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I looked at their trembling backs and added another sentence. But you're walking too slowly. I'll send you on your way. Before they could react, the ice spikes had already fallen. Screams rang out, then quickly disappeared. A few seconds later, only corpses remained on the ground. I stood where I was and scanned the area. No survivors. But that still wasn't enough. I walked to the street corner, made some noise, and attracted a group of zombies. They pounced onto the corpses and devoured them madly. Soldiers. Su Hao. Xiang Tianqing. Executives. Soon, all of them were mangled beyond recognition. No bodies, no evidence. Only then did I turn and leave. In the apocalypse, soft-hearted people didn't live long. And in this life, I would live to the very end. And I would also stand at the very top. After leaving Jinhai Tower, I went directly to Subei College. That was my alma mater. An ordinary undergraduate university. The gate was broken. The teaching buildings were old. After graduation, the degree didn't carry much value, and the jobs weren't worth much either. But I wasn't returning to reminisce. I came to retrieve something. Inside Subei College, there was a python. Before the apocalypse began, it had crawled into the school from the outskirts. Before anyone could catch it, the meteor shower descended. Then, it mutated into a ferocious beast. Ferocious beasts were different from zombies. Zombies relied on instinct to eat people. Ferocious beasts had brains. Although low-tier ferocious beasts didn't have much intelligence yet, they already knew how to seek advantage and avoid harm. In the later stages, those high-tier ferocious beasts could even speak, and their intelligence was no lower than humans. As for this python, in my previous life, it evolved all the way to tier 5 before someone killed it. It ate many people and swallowed many resources. What I wanted was its gallbladder. The gallbladder of an evolved ferocious beast was a great tonic. especially this kind of python that had eaten humans. The energy was even stronger. As long as I got it, combined with the residual energy from the moonlit tier in my body, there was a high chance I could rush to Tier 3. Tier 3 Ice Dragon. That would be when things truly started becoming unreasonable. I stood at the school gate and looked at that old, broken entrance, then sneered. Still the same as ever. A few zombies wandered near the gate. I raised a finger. Ice spikes flew out. With a few sounds, all fell. I conveniently extracted their crystal cores and put them into the spatial ring. Even mosquito legs were still meat. After entering the campus, the place was very empty. There was blood on the sports field, corpses below the teaching building. From far away, the occasional roar of zombies could be heard. I ignored them. There were definitely still living people in the school, but that had nothing to do with me. In the apocalypse, the stupidest thing one could do was become a savior. This time, I was only looking for the snake. I had just crossed the main road when I heard a loud crash from the library. Bang! Immediately after came a woman's scream. I looked up. The 9th floor of the library. The glass shook. I smiled. Found it. At the same time, on the 9th floor of the library, Su Qingxue and several others were huddled in a corner, not daring to breathe too loudly. She was the campus belle of Subei College. In the past, wherever she went, people fawned over her. Now, her face was pale, her fingers trembling. Beside her, Li Heng leaned closer and asked softly, "Qingxue, are you all right?" Su Qingxue shook her head, her voice trembling. "I just saw several classmates get eaten by that monster." The two roommates beside her were already on the verge of collapse. Zhongli sat on the floor, crying until her makeup was ruined. "Qingxue, what do we do? I don't want to die." Zhao Han was trembling too. "There are zombies outside, and that snake inside. Are we doomed?" Li Heng immediately patted his chest. "Don't be afraid. Qingxue, I'll definitely get you out." He looked at Su Qingxue, his eyes full of fawning devotion. He had pursued her for 3 years, licked her boots for 3 years. Even with the apocalypse here, he was still like this. I awakened my ability this morning. Teleportation. Although I can only teleport a few meters each time, it can save our lives at a critical moment. Su Qingxue's eyes moved. "How many more times can you use it?" Li Heng thought for a moment. 4 or 5 times, I think. Su Qingxue didn't speak. She glanced at her two roommates, then at the python slithering outside. The python was 6 or 7 meters long, as thick as a bowl, entirely greenish-black, with blood still hanging from the corner of its mouth. It had just eaten someone, but it wasn't full yet. Su Qingxue suddenly said in a low voice, "I have a plan." Zhang Li and Zhao Han immediately raised their heads. "Really? Qingxue, tell us quickly." Su Qingxue looked at them, her voice very gentle. "You two run from the side door first. Li Heng and I will lure it away." Zhang Li froze for a moment. Then tears came out at once. "Qingxue, you're too good. I'll definitely remember you forever." Zhao Han also nodded repeatedly. "If we survive, we'll definitely repay you." Su Qingxue smiled. "We're roommates. I've always treated you like family." Li Heng looked at her, his eyes full of emotion. As expected of Qingxue. Kind. Brave. But the next second, his expression froze. Just as Zhang Li and Zhao Han reached the side door, Su Qingxue suddenly picked up a glass bottle from the table and threw it toward their feet. Bang! The glass shattered. The sound was piercing. Zhang Li and Zhao Han instantly froze. The python abruptly turned its head. Its forked tongue flicked out. It slithered toward them. Zhang Li's face turned deathly pale as she looked back at Su Qingxue. "You?" Zhao Han also reacted. "Su Qingxue, you sold us out." There wasn't the slightest ripple on Su Qingxue's face. She turned and grabbed Li Heng's hand. "Quick, take me away while we can." Li Heng froze. "What about them?" Su Qingxue's eyes instantly reddened. "Li Heng, the 4 of us can't all survive. Someone has to draw it away. You don't want to watch me get eaten by it either, do you?" Li Heng looked at her tears, and his heart softened. He gritted his teeth and nodded. "I won't let you die." The python lunged at Zhongli and swallowed her in one bite. Zhao Han was so frightened she collapsed on the ground, even the hems of her pants becoming wet. Su Qingxue immediately growled. Now, Li Heng activated his ability. Their figures flashed. They only teleported 3 meters. Su Qingxue's expression changed. "Why only this far?" Li Heng panicked. "With you along, The distance gets shorter. After the python swallowed Zhao Han, it slowly turned its head. It fixed its gaze on Li Hong. The flesh and blood of an ability user was more fragrant than that of an ordinary person. Su Qingshue's voice trembled. Hurry! Li Hong teleported again. 3 meters. Then another 3 meters. But the python was faster. Its tail swept sideways. Bang! The two of them were sent flying directly, rolling beside a bookshelf. Su Qingshue's vision darkened from the fall. When she raised her head, the python had already blocked their path of retreat. Li Heng gritted his teeth and stood up, shielding her behind him. Qingxue, you go first. Su Qingshue's eyes moved, her voice very soft. Thank you, Li Heng. Li Heng smiled, as if he had received the greatest reward in the world. I'm willing. He gripped a fruit knife tightly and activated his last teleportation. His figure flashed, appearing directly above the python's head. He stabbed the knife down fiercely. Uffed. The blade only sank in a little. Blood seeped out. The python flew into a rage. It thrashed its body wildly. Li Heng clung to it tightly and turned his head to look at Su Qingshuo. Run! Su Qingshuo didn't hesitate. She turned and ran. She didn't even look back. Li Heng looked at her back and smiled. Goodbye, my goddess. The next second, the python coiled around him and swallowed him in one bite, then continued chasing Su Qingshuo. She couldn't run fast. Soon, it caught up with her. She turned back and saw Li Heng's blood still hanging from the python's mouth. Her legs instantly went weak. Am I going to die? The python lunged downward. She closed her eyes. 1 second. 2 seconds. She didn't die. Instead, there was a loud crash. Bang! The giant python was sent flying. And in front of her, another person had appeared. Black clothes, long sword, a pale face carrying a hint of wickedness. It was me. I looked at the python and smiled. Finally found you. Tier 2 already? Not bad. Your gallbladder is enough for me to reach Tier 3. The python slowly crawled up, its eyes full of rage. It coiled its body, preparing to attack. I took out extreme frost. The surrounding temperature instantly dropped. Su Qingshuo trembled behind me. I didn't look at her. Just a woman. Not important right now. Frost condensed beneath my feet into an arched bridge, and I used the force to rush upward. The python launched itself at the same time. Bang! Sword light descended. Bloodlight exploded. The python crashed heavily to the ground. A huge wound slashed across its body. Su Qingshue's eyes widened. How is this possible? I stood in midair, the ice bridge extending beneath my feet. Nothing special. After saying that, I raised my hand. Hundreds of ice spikes hovered in the air. Icefall. The ice spikes fell like a storm. Bang, bang, bang. The giant python was completely pierced through and pinned to the ground. 2 moves. A Tier 2 ferocious beast, dead. Su Qingshuo stood behind me, unable to say a word. The monster that had killed their entire group just now hadn't even had the right to struggle in front of me. I landed and walked to the python's side. Using extreme frost, I cut open its belly. A bright red gallbladder was revealed, steaming hot, full of energy. Just as I reached out to take it, I suddenly sensed danger approaching from the side. I frowned. An ice shield rose instantly. Boom. A bolt of purple lightning struck the ice shield. The ice shield actually cracked. My eyes turned cold. Who? A dark shadow flashed, straight toward the snake gallbladder. I immediately condensed ice spikes and shot them over. But that thing was very fast, dodging left and right, forcibly reaching the gallbladder and grabbing it with one claw. I finally saw it clearly. A black dog, much bigger than an ordinary dog, like a wolf. Its fur was messy, a stray dog at a glance. But the instant I saw it, I froze for a moment, then smiled. It's you. In the later stages of the apocalypse, a Tier 9 ferocious beast. SSS rank ability, Purple Sky Divine Thunder. The Dog Emperor. I had seen it in my previous life. Back then, I was Tier 5, and it was Tier 7. It didn't eat me, but it robbed me of all the crystal cores I had. This damn dog was extremely wicked. Now, it was still at the peak of Tier 2, and it dared steal my snake gallbladder. I gripped Extreme Frost tightly and smiled even more happily. Stupid dog. Give me the thing. Otherwise, I'll skin you today. The black dog protected the snake gallbladder and barked wildly at me. Woof, woof, woof. I understood. It refused to submit. Very good. I stepped forward and slashed down with my sword. Purple lightning exploded around the black dog, and several bolts of purple sky divine thunder struck toward me. I knew its abilities long ago. An ice shield condensed. Lightning struck the shield, blasting out cracks, but failed to break through. 2 seconds later, I had already arrived in front of it. One slash. The black dog was so frightened its fur stood on end. It carried the snake gallbladder and dodged to the side. Boom. A patch of ground was cut open by my sword. It turned and wanted to run. I sneered. Want to leave? Ice walls rose from all directions, directly sealing off its path. Countless ice spikes hovered. The black dog's eyes widened. Woof! I waved my hand. The ice spikes shot out violently. It used purple sky divine thunder to resist. The lightning was very strong. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough of it. There were too many ice spikes. Bang, bang, bang. It was sent flying and slammed into the ice wall, frost forming all over its body. The snake gallbladder also fell. My figure flashed, and I punched it. Bang! The black dog let out a miserable cry and rolled away. I picked up the snake gallbladder and put it into the spatial ring, then looked at it. The dog emperor stood up, one side of its dog face swollen. There was already an intent to retreat in its eyes. Woof, woof. It barked twice in a low voice, its tail gently wagging. Appeasing. Seeking peace. I smiled. This damn dog was still so realistic. If it couldn't win, it surrendered. I walked closer to it. You stole my thing, and now you want to leave? The black dog nodded. Woof, I said. Where in the world is there such a good deal? It barked lowly twice more, as if asking me what I wanted. I looked at it, and suddenly had an idea. In my previous life, the dog emperor had been a tier 9 powerhouse, and it didn't eat humans. Although it was wicked, its bottom line was higher than many humans. If I subdued it now, in the future, it would be equivalent to having a future tier 9 combat force by my side. A massive profit. I crouched down and looked at it. If you don't want to die, fine. Acknowledge me as your master. The black dog instantly shook its head, quite firmly. My smile vanished. You don't agree? Then I'll beat you until you agree. As soon as my words fell, I charged forward. The black dog turned and ran. I chased behind it. It released lightning. I raised shields. It crawled under tables. I smashed the tables with one punch. It leapt onto bookshelves. I sealed its path with ice walls. For a full 10 minutes. The 9th floor of the library was demolished into chaos by us. Su Qingxue stood in the corner, completely stunned. One person and one dog. One released ice. One released lightning. Like two monsters fighting. In the end, I punched the black dog onto the ground, leaving it belly up. Awoo! It cried miserably. Its dog face was swollen. Its fur had exploded outward. Its body was bruised all over. I stood beside it. Still fighting. It hurriedly shook its head. Submit. It hesitated for 1 second. I raised my fist. It immediately nodded, barking loudly. Woof, woof, woof. I was satisfied. That's more like it. I lifted my foot and kicked it. It looked at me resentfully. I said coldly, I'll give you one chance. If you dare play tricks in the future, I'll pluck all your fur and stew you into a pot of dog soup. The black dog trembled and nodded repeatedly. I looked at it and thought for a moment. Since you're following me, you need a name. The black dog's eyes brightened a little. I said, from now on, you'll be called Stupid Dog. The black dog's fur instantly stood on end. Woof, woof, woof. I raised my hand as if to hit it again. It immediately shut up. I smiled. Objection denied. You're Stupid Dog. Yang Hua's aged yet powerful voice exploded over the safe zone. The soldiers around them, who had originally looked exhausted and even somewhat despairing, all suddenly raised their heads after hearing those words. Elder Yang is here. Elder Yang is defending with us. No one knew who shouted first. The next moment, the soldiers along the entire defensive line seemed to have been injected with a shot of adrenaline. The morale that had nearly collapsed was forcibly pulled back. Yang Hua stood on the hastily built platform, his military uniform already stained with dust, yet his back was straight and his gaze sharp. Subei is our home. Behind us are our compatriots. If even we retreat, who will stop these monsters? I, Yang Hua, will stand right here today. If the defensive line falls, I will die before you. As soon as these words fell, many soldiers' eyes turned red. Fight to the death. Shui Yang was the first to roar. Fight to the death. Fight to the death. Fight to the death. At the perimeter of the military region, their roars shook the heavens. Even though the distant zombie tide kept surging forward, even though bullets were growing fewer and fewer, even though people were falling every minute and every second, the eyes of these soldiers had clearly changed. It was a kind of resolve that moved forward despite knowing death was certain. Su Yuanting stood behind the crowd, his face gloomy. He looked at Yang Hua's back, a trace of coldness flashing through his eyes. Old thing. Even at a time like this, he was still here buying people's hearts. Did he really think a few words could stop the zombie tide? Foolish. Su Yuanting sneered inwardly. In his view, staying alive was what mattered most. Soldiers, compatriots, responsibility. What a joke. The apocalypse had come. Power and strength were the only real things. Boom. A loud crash suddenly came from the eastern defensive line. A massive Tier 2 zombie knocked over the temporary iron barricade and charged straight into the interior of the defensive line. Tier 2 strength-type zombie. Someone cried out in alarm. That zombie was nearly 2.5 meters tall, its muscles bulging all over. Its skin was gray-black, and ordinary bullets striking its body could only embed themselves in the surface, unable to cause fatal damage. It suddenly swung an arm. Bang! A soldier was sent flying directly, his chest caving in. He died on the spot. Suppressive fire. Shuiyang roared. Rat-a-tat-tat. Dense bullets poured out. But that Tier 2 strength-type zombie continued forward under the hail of bullets. Several Tier 1 ability users around them rushed up. Someone condensed fireballs. Someone strengthened their body. Someone controlled earth spikes. But when these attacks landed on the Tier 2 strength-type zombie, they had little effect. Instead, it punched them one by one, sending them flying as they vomited blood. Move aside. A sharp female shout rang out. A young woman wearing combat gear rushed out from the crowd, lightning flickering in her palm. She was currently the only Tier 2 ability user in the 4th military region. Lightning ability. Xin Yue. Before the apocalypse, she had already been a member of the military region's special operations team with excellent combat skills. After the apocalypse, she awakened a lightning ability and was regarded by the military region as a key target for cultivation. Xin Yue moved nimbly, dodging the strength-type zombie's attacks with several flashes. Then lightning in her palm slammed fiercely onto its skull. Boom! Lightning exploded outward. The strength-type zombie staggered back, half of its face blasted black. It worked. The surrounding soldiers' expressions lit up with joy. But in the next second, that strength-type zombie actually forced itself to steady its body. Its scarlet eyes locked onto Xin Yue. It let out an enraged roar, and its speed suddenly increased. Xin Yue's expression changed slightly. Not good. This strength-type zombie actually possessed the ability to burst with speed for a short time. Bang! It smashed down with one punch. Xin Yue barely dodged. The ground was instantly smashed open with cracks. But before she could adjust her stance, two more second-tier zombies charged in from the side. One was speed-type. One was bone-spike type. 3 second-tier zombies surrounded and attacked Xin Yue at the same time. The pressure on her suddenly soared. Support Captain Shun. Shuiyang roared. But zombies were everywhere around them. The soldiers simply had no way to split their attention. On the other side, Chun Xian stood atop a distant high-rise, quietly watching this scene. Dog Emperor crouched beside him, a crystal core still clamped in its mouth. Woof! It raised its head to look at Chun Xian, as if asking whether they should make a move. Chun Xian narrowed his eyes, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. No rush. Let's watch first. Dog Emperor tilted its head. No rush. If they waited any longer, those people would all be dead. Of course, Chun Xian was not concerned about whether the military district lived or died. He was observing. A zombie tide of this scale could not have appeared for no reason, especially those second-tier zombies. Their movements seemed chaotic, but in reality, they had been focusing their attacks on the weakest points of the defensive line. This meant there had to be a high-tier zombie controlling them from behind. At least third tier. It might even be a psychic-type zombie. Psychic-type zombies were extremely rare in the early stage of the apocalypse, but once they appeared, they were very troublesome. Their individual combat strength might not be powerful, but their ability to command zombie hordes was terrifying. If he could kill it and obtain a psychic-type crystal core, its value would not be low. Of course, to Qin Xian, the most important thing was still the crystal cores among these tens of thousands of zombies. He did not care for first-tier crystal cores, but second-tier crystal cores were useful. Hundreds of second-tier crystal cores would be enough for Dog Emperor to break through to third tier, and they could also replenish quite a bit of his own energy. Master, look over there. Dog Emperor suddenly let out a low bark. Although it still could not speak human language, Qin Xian could roughly understand what it meant. He followed Dog Emperor's gaze. At the rear of the zombie tide, on top of an abandoned factory building, stood a hunched figure. That zombie did not look strong. It was even thinner than an ordinary zombie, but its head was huge. Its forehead bulged outward. Its eyes were a strange dark purple. It stood there without moving. Yet around it were more than a dozen second-tier zombies guarding it. Qin Xian smiled. As expected, a psychic-type zombie. And it's already third tier. When Dog Emperor heard the words third tier, its eyes immediately lit up. A third-tier crystal core. Good stuff. Qin Xian reached out and pressed down on its dog head. Don't be impatient. That thing is mine. Dog Emperor. It looked at Qin Xian with a resentful gaze. Qin Xian said indifferently, the second-tier crystal cores are all yours. Dog Emperor instantly became happy. Woof woof. Acceptable. Deal. At the military district's defensive line, Xin Yue had already fallen into a desperate situation. With 3 second-tier zombies attacking her from all sides, plus the dense mass of first-tier zombies around them. Even as a second-tier lightning-type ability user, she was almost unable to hold on. Her combat uniform had been torn in several places, and her shoulder had been cut open by a bone spike. Fresh blood flowed down, stimulating the nearby zombies into even greater madness. The strength-type zombie charged at her again. Xin Yue gritted her teeth and gathered lightning. But there was not much ability energy left in her body. Damn it, her face was pale. If she fell, the eastern defensive line would definitely collapse. Once the line was broken, the wounded, logistics personnel, and ordinary survivors inside would all die. She could not retreat, nor could she fall. The strength-type zombie smashed down with a punch. Xin Yue forcibly raised her hand to block. Boom. Her entire body was sent flying backward, slamming heavily into the sandbag defensive line. A mouthful of blood sprayed from her lips. Captain Shun. The surrounding soldiers were shocked. The speed-type zombie turned into an afterimage, charging straight towards Xin Yue's neck to bite her. Xin Yue's pupils abruptly contracted. She could not dodge. Just then, an ice spike descended from the sky. Uffed. The speed-type zombie's head was instantly pierced through, and its entire body was nailed to the ground. The surrounding air suddenly turned cold. Everyone froze. Xin Yue was also stunned. The next moment, a figure slowly descended. Black clothes, a long sword. Cold air coiled around him. Ice spread beneath his feet, and more than a dozen nearby zombies were instantly frozen. Qin Xian stood in front of Xin Yue and casually waved his hand. Crack! All those frozen zombies shattered. Crystal cores scattered all over the ground. Qin Xian did not look back. He only said indifferently, "People from the military district?" Xin Yue clutched her chest and struggled to stand. "Who are you?" Qin Xian chuckled. "Just passing by, and making a deal while I'm at it." Xin Yue was stunned. A deal? At a time like this? Before she could speak, the strength-type zombie roared and charged over. Qin Xian did not even lift his eyelids. The extreme cold sword slashed horizontally. An ice-blue sword light swept past. Uffed. The strength-type zombie's massive body instantly froze. In the next second, its head rolled to the ground. Killed in one strike. Xin Yue's pupils suddenly shrank. That was a second-tier strength-type zombie. A monster that had almost forced her to death just now. And yet this man before her had casually cut it down? The surrounding soldiers were even more shocked, unable to speak. Who is this guy? So strong. Is he also an ability user? Nonsense. He's obviously even stronger than Captain Shun. The bone spike-type zombie sensed danger and turned around, wanting to flee. Qin Xian raised his hand. An ice wall rose up, blocking its retreat. Then, an ice spear condensed. Whoosh. The ice spear pierced through the air and directly penetrated the bone spike zombie's chest, pinning it to a distant wall. Qin Xian slowly walked over and took out several second-tier crystal cores. Dog Emperor darted out from behind and cheerfully began picking up crystal cores. Seeing that a dog could actually release lightning and even actively collect crystal cores, the surrounding soldiers were stunned again. A dog. This dog is also an ability beast. Did that dog just look down on me? Dog Emperor passed by a soldier with a crystal core in its mouth and glanced sideways at him. That look seemed to say, "How ignorant." Chen Xian ignored them. He looked at Xin Yue. "Have the person in charge here come out." Xin Yue looked at him warily. "What do you want?" Chen Xian said calmly. "To save you, but not for free." At this time, Shui Yang, Yang Hua, and the others also hurried over. They had all seen Chen Xian make his move just now. In 2 moves, he had killed several second-tier zombies. This kind of strength was simply terrifying. Yang Hua looked at Chen Xian, his gaze solemn, but without any air of superiority. "Young brother, I am Yang Hua, the person in charge of the 4th Military District. Thank you for saving us just now." Chen Xian glanced at him. Yang Hua. In his previous life, this man had also been considered someone of note. In the early stage of the apocalypse, the 4th Military District had managed to last a long time, and this old man had played a major role in that. However, later on, internal problems had broken out within the 4th Military District, and Yang Hua seemed to have died in an internal conflict. As for the exact details, Chen Xian was not clear. In his previous life, he had only been a bottom-level ability user, so the things he knew were limited. But he knew that Yang Hua had a decent reputation. At the very least, he was far better than Su Yuanting behind him. Chen Xian went straight to the point. "I'll help you deal with this zombie tide. All crystal cores above 2nd tier belong to me. In addition, I want a batch of supplies." Shui Yang frowned. All the 2nd tier crystal cores. Although they had only just begun researching the use of crystal cores, they already knew that crystal cores could help ability users recover and increase their strength. 2nd tier crystal cores were naturally valuable. Chen Xian glanced at him indifferently. "You can refuse. I'll leave right now. You defend this place yourselves." Shui Yang was immediately rendered speechless. Yang Hua asked in a deep voice, "Young brother, are you confident you can deal with this zombie tide?" Chen Xian looked toward the distant factory building. Behind the zombie tide is a 3rd-tier psychic-type zombie. Kill it, and the zombie tide will naturally fall into chaos. 3rd tier. Xin Yue's expression changed. They had already struggled so much against 2nd-tier zombies. And there was actually a 3rd-tier one? Yang Hua's expression also sank. But he did not doubt Chen Xian. The strength of this young man before him was clearly far beyond theirs. "Good." Yang Hua spoke decisively. "I agree. All crystal cores above 2nd tier belong to you. As for supplies, as long as the military district has them, we can provide them within a reasonable range." Su Yuanting's expression changed slightly. "Elder Yang, isn't this a little too hasty? 2nd tier crystal cores are not low in value. If we give them all to him, what about the ability users in our military district?" Chen Xian glanced at Su Yuanting. His gaze was very calm. But Su Yuanting inexplicably felt a chill down his back. Yang Hua said in a deep voice, "If the safe zone is gone, what use is there in keeping crystal cores?" Su Yuanting opened his mouth, but in the end, he still closed it. Chen Xian chuckled. "Smart." After saying that, he looked at Dog Emperor. "Stupid dog, time to work." Dog Emperor's fur instantly bristled. In front of so many people, could he not call it by that name? It was Dog Emperor. But when it saw Chen Xian's gaze, it became obedient again. Woof! One man and one dog charged toward the zombie tide at the same time. Ice spread beneath Chen Xian's feet. Wherever he passed, 1st-tier zombies froze in large swaths. The extreme cold sword swept across, sending out streaks of ice-blue sword light. Zombies fell like wheat before a scythe. Dog Emperor's entire body was wrapped in purple lightning, its speed as fast as black lightning. Boom, boom, boom. Streaks of purple sky divine thunder descended, blasting 2nd-tier zombies black. As it killed, it picked up crystal cores in its mouth. Its efficiency was extremely high. Everyone in the military district was stunned. The zombie tide they had desperately struggled against, almost crushed beneath, was like paper before this man and dog. Xin Yue stared blankly at Chen Xian's back and murmured, "Who exactly is he?" Yang Hua's gaze was deep. "No matter who he is. At least right now, he is our lifeline." In the distance, The third-tier psychic-type zombie also seemed to sense Chun Xian's threat. It raised its head and let out a sharp roar. Roar! The next moment, the zombie tide erupted into chaos. More than 100 second-tier zombies turned at the same time, surrounding Chun Xian and Dog Emperor. The corners of Chun Xian's mouth lifted slightly. Not hiding anymore. Then this will be easy. He raised his hand. The third-tier ice dragon ability in his body erupted completely. In an instant, the temperature of heaven and earth plummeted. In the sky, cold mist condensed. A faintly visible ice dragon phantom slowly emerged behind Chun Xian. The dragon's eyes opened. Pressure descended. Dog Emperor trembled all over and almost dropped to the ground on the spot. This feeling again. Bloodline suppression. Too terrifying. Chun Xian's eyes were cold as his palms slowly fell. Ice dragon burial. Chun Xian's gaze gradually turned cold. In the apocalypse, the greatest taboo was allowing potential threats to grow, especially this kind of existence before him. It could control a zombie tide. It could also command more than 100 second-tier zombies. If it were given more time to grow, it might be able to easily wipe out a large safe zone. Such a being could either be subdued or killed. But Chun Xian did not like gambling on people's hearts. So the simplest choice was kill. If it had a heavenly mark, that would be even better. He would directly plunder it. Chun Xian lowered his voice and said to Dog Emperor, "Stupid dog, circle around from the left in a moment. After I make my move, stop those second-tier zombies immediately." Dog Emperor's dog face stiffened. More than 100 second-tier zombies? You want me to stop them? You really think highly of this dog lord. Just as it was about to protest, it saw Chun Xian's cold gaze sweep over. Dog Emperor immediately lowered its head. "Woof. Fine. I'll go." Chun Xian said indifferently. "Don't worry. I'm not sending you to die. Just hold them off for 10 seconds. After it's done, all the second-tier crystal cores are yours." Dog Emperor's eyes instantly lit up. "Woof woof. You should have said that earlier. Just 10 seconds. This dog lord will risk it." One man and one dog split up. Inside the valley, the black-robed man sat cross-legged on a high platform, his hands forming strange seals. The zombies around him were unnervingly quiet. If not for the thick stench of decay permeating the air, the scene before them might even make one mistake it for a sleeping army. Chun Xian lay against the mountain wall, his gaze locked onto the black-robed man. The distance was about 300 meters. To ordinary ability users, this distance was not short. But to Chun Xian, who possessed the third-tier ice dragon ability, it was enough. He slowly raised his hand. Moisture in the air began to condense. An extremely thin and long ice spear formed in his palm. This ice spear was different from ordinary ice spikes. Its entire body was transparent, almost blending into the air. No cold mist leaked out. There was no sound. Even the energy fluctuations had been forcefully suppressed by Chun Xian to the lowest level. The next second, Chun Xian's eyes focused. The ice spear shot out instantly. Whoosh. Silent and soundless. It almost turned into a transparent streak of light. It shot straight toward the black-robed man's back. But the instant the ice spear was less than 3 meters away from him, the black-robed man suddenly raised his head. It was as if he had sensed the danger in advance. More than a dozen second-tier zombies around him instantly erupted into motion, directly blocking in front of him. Puff, puff, puff. The ice spear pierced through 7 second-tier zombies in succession before finally plunging into the 8th zombie's body and exploding with a boom. Ice spread outward. Those 8 second-tier zombies were instantly frozen into ice sculptures. The black-robed man slowly turned his head and looked in the direction where Chun Xian was hiding. Although his face could not be seen beneath the black robe, Chun Xian could feel it. The other party was looking at him. "I've been discovered." Chun Xian chuckled, not surprised. A guy capable of controlling a zombie tide had to possess strong mental power. A failed sneak attack was normal. Since the sneak attack had failed, then he would kill him head-on. Chun Xian leaped forward, and ice steps condensed beneath his feet out of thin air. His figure sped down from the mountain wall. "Move!" As his voice fell. On the other side, Dog Emperor's entire body erupted with purple lightning. "Woof!" Dog Emperor barked wildly, and purple sky divine thunder instantly transformed into a lightning net, smashing fiercely into the zombie horde. Boom, boom, boom. Large numbers of first-tier zombies were blasted into charcoal by lightning. More than 100 second-tier zombies also turned their heads in unison, rushing to surround and kill Dog Emperor. Seeing this, Dog Emperor's face immediately turned green. Didn't he say 10 seconds? Why did 10 seconds feel so damn long? Its speed was extremely fast, turning into a black lightning shadow as it darted wildly through the zombie horde. It ran while releasing lightning. Woof, woof, woof. If you've got guts, fight me one-on-one. What kind of skill is it to gang up on a dog? But naturally, the zombies could not understand its barking. Or rather, even if they understood, they would not care. Under the black-robed man's control, more than a dozen speed-type second-tier zombies were the first to charge at Dog Emperor. The other dozens of strength-type and bone-spike-type zombies surrounded Chen Xian. Chen Xian's expression was cold. Blocking me. The extreme cold sword in his hand left its sheath. Sword light flashed. An ice-blue cold gleam cut through the air. The 3 second-tier zombies at the front were instantly cut in half at the waist. Before blood could even spray out, it had already frozen into ice shards. Chen Xian advanced all the way. Ice spread beneath his feet. Ice spikes danced beside him. Any zombie that approached him, whether first tier or second tier, was frozen, cut apart, or pierced through. He was like an ice blade stabbing into the heart of the zombie tide. He had only one target: the black-robed man. On the high platform, the black-robed man finally stood. He raised one pale hand. The next moment, every zombie in the valley let out a roar at the same time. Roar! The terrifying sound waves shook loose stones down from the mountain walls. Those previously quiet zombies went completely berserk, especially the dozens of second-tier zombies guarding the black-robed man. They no longer fought separately, but instead formed some kind of killing formation. Speed types were responsible for restraint. Strength types charged from the front. Bone spike types launched ranged sneak attacks. There were even several psychic-type zombies mixed in at the back, constantly emitting sharp screeches in an attempt to interfere with Chen Xian's consciousness. Psychic attack. Chen Xian raised his brows slightly. The next moment, a stabbing pain burrowed into his mind. If he were an ordinary third-tier ability user, he might truly have been affected. But Chen Xian was different. He not only possessed the mythic-grade Ice Dragon ability, but also the mythic-grade Plunder ability. His soul strength had long since become different from that of ordinary people. Those few psychic attacks landed in his mind like a few fine needles stabbing into steel. He felt it, but not much. Chen Xian sneered. "This is all you've got." He raised his hand and clenched it. Ice spikes suddenly erupted beneath the feet of those psychic-type zombies. Puff, puff, puff. The ice spikes shot upward from below, instantly piercing through their heads. Several crystal cores rolled down. Chen Xian did not go to pick them up. Kill first, harvest later. The black-robed man also seemed to sense Chen Xian's terror. His figure swayed, and he actually retreated toward the rear. Trying to run? Chen Xian's eyes turned cold. Ice prison. Boom. Around the high platform, ice walls rose from the ground. All directions were instantly sealed off. The black-robed man's retreat was cut off. But in the next second, several second-tier strength-type zombies beside him slammed into the ice walls at the same time. Bang, bang, bang. Cracks appeared in the ice walls. The black-robed man took the opportunity to raise his hand. A stream of dark red energy surged out from his palm. The corpses of the zombies Chen Xian had killed actually began to melt, turning into sticky flesh and blood that gathered toward his body. Chen Xian frowned. Corpse blood type ability? No. It's more like a combination of corpse manipulation and flesh devouring. The black-robed man's aura began to rise. Originally, he had only been at the early stage of third tier. In the blink of an eye, he was actually approaching the middle stage of third tier. The interest in Chen Xian's eyes grew stronger. As expected, it's not an ordinary ability. The black-robed man finally spoke. His voice was hoarse, like sandpaper scraping against iron. "Who are you?" Chen Xian said calmly. "The one who will kill you." The black-robed man fell silent for a moment, then slowly raised his head. Beneath the brim of the black robe, a face was revealed, so deathly pale that it did not resemble a living person's. It was a man, around 30 years old, but his face was covered in black vascular patterns, his eyes were scarlet, and his lips were purple. He did not look like a normal person, nor did he look like a zombie. He looked more like a monster caught between human and zombie. Chen Xian's gaze landed on the man's neck. There, a dark red pattern faintly appeared. A heavenly mark. Chen Xian's eyes instantly lit up. As expected, he had won. And the color of this heavenly mark was different from that of ordinary ability users. Ordinary heavenly marks were mostly white, gold, silver, or purple. But the black-robed man's heavenly mark was dark red, like the color of coagulated blood. This meant that his ability was extremely special. It might even be related to the origin of zombies. The black-robed man seemed to notice Chen Xian's gaze. He reached out and touched his neck, then revealed a sinister smile. "You know about this too?" Chen Xian smiled. "Of course. So you deserve to die even more." As his voice fell, Chen Xian's figure abruptly disappeared. The next second, he appeared in front of the black-robed man. The extreme cold sword slashed down. The black-robed man's pupils shrank. Too fast. He hurriedly controlled several second-tier zombies to block in front of him. Uft! Sword light swept through. Those second-tier zombies were instantly sliced apart. But the black-robed man also used the chance to retreat several meters. He slammed both hands onto the ground. Corpse puppet. Boom. The ground exploded. A massive monster pieced together from countless mutilated corpses crawled out from the flesh and blood. The monster was a full 4 meters tall, covered in arms and heads, and more than a dozen crystal cores were embedded in its chest. Its aura had actually reached 3rd tier. Dog Emperor saw this from afar, and its dog eyes nearly popped out. Holy crap, what the hell is that thing? Chen Xian, however, showed no trace of fear. A 3rd-tier corpse puppet? Somewhat interesting. The corpse puppet roared and smashed one enormous arm toward Chen Xian. The force of this attack was immense. Even the air exploded with a booming sound. Chen Xian did not dodge or evade. He raised his left hand. Ice dragon scales appeared on his arm. Bang! The corpse puppet's punch smashed down. The ground beneath Chen Xian instantly collapsed. But his body did not move at all. He had actually caught the corpse puppet's fist with one hand. The black-robed man's expression changed for the first time. How is that possible? Chen Xian raised his head, coldness surging in his eyes. That's it. His 5 fingers tightened. Crack. The corpse puppet's arm was forcibly crushed. Then Chen Xian took one step forward and swept the extreme cold sword horizontally. Ice Dragon Slash. An ice dragon phantom coiled around the sword edge. The sword light cut through the corpse puppet's body. Boom. The massive corpse puppet was instantly frozen. Immediately afterward, it split in 2 from the middle. More than a dozen crystal cores clattered to the ground. The black-robed man finally panicked. He turned and ran. Only running now. Too late. Chen Xian raised his hand. Ice chains shot violently out from the ground, instantly wrapping around the black-robed man's limbs. The black-robed man struggled frantically. Dark red flesh and blood continuously corroded the ice. But Chen Xian had already arrived before him. He stepped onto the black-robed man's chest. Bang! The black-robed man was stomped into the ground, black blood spraying from his mouth. Chen Xian crouched down and tore open his collar. That dark red heavenly mark was completely revealed. The pattern was like a blood-red centipede, extending from the collarbone all the way up to the neck. Chen Xian could sense that this heavenly mark contained an extremely evil power. Control, devouring, infection, evolution. Several abilities seemed to be fused together. This ability was even more special than he had expected. The black-robed man glared at Chen Xian. "You can't kill me." Chen Xian smiled. "Oh, give me a reason." The black-robed man panted heavily, his voice hoarse. "Behind me, there are others. If you kill me, they won't let you go." Chen Xian's eyes shifted slightly. "They?" A strange smile appeared on the black-robed man's face. "You think the apocalypse was an accident? You think these zombies are just ordinary mutations? You know nothing. The true terror will descend very soon." Chen Xian narrowed his eyes. Those words were somewhat interesting. In his previous life, he had lived until 5th tier, but he had indeed never come into contact with the deepest secrets of the apocalypse. Could this guy know something? Chen Xian said coldly. "Explain clearly." But the black-robed man's smile became even stranger. "Too late. They have already seen you." As soon as he finished speaking, a black rune suddenly appeared on his forehead. Chen Xian's expression changed slightly. Not good. Self-destruction? Without the slightest hesitation, The power of extreme cold instantly surged into the black-robed man's body, forcibly freezing his heart and brain. But he was still one step too slow. Bang! The black-robed man's head exploded directly. Black blood splattered out, but Chun Xian froze it into ice shards midair. The corpse collapsed to the ground. The surrounding zombies that had been controlled instantly fell into chaos. Some stood blankly in place. Some tore at each other. Others began rushing toward Chun Xian by instinct. Chun Xian stood where he was, his expression slightly dark. They have already seen me? He lowered his head and looked at the black-robed man's headless corpse. Suddenly, the dark red heavenly mark on the corpse's neck began to glow. Chun Xian's eyes lit up. Still there. That was enough. He did not hesitate any longer and directly activated his second ability, Plunder. His palm pressed onto the heavenly mark. The next moment, the dark red pattern seemed to become a living thing, peeling away from the black-robed man's corpse and burrowing into Chun Xian's body through his palm. Boom! A cold, evil, violent force exploded inside Chun Xian's body. Countless chaotic images surged into his mind. A zombie tide, a blood moon, an altar, crowds of black-robed people, and an enormous shadow so blurry it was nearly indistinguishable. That shadow sat atop an endless sea of corpses. Like a king, Chun Xian abruptly opened his eyes, blue veins faintly pulsing on his forehead. This power was very evil. If an ordinary person absorbed it, their mind would probably be polluted on the spot. But Chun Xian's plunder ability was extremely domineering. No matter how evil this power originally was, once plundered, it had to submit to him. A moment later, Chun Xian exhaled a breath of cold air, his eyes regaining their clarity. In his mind, new ability information appeared. Corpse King Seal. It could control zombies below his own tier. It could briefly influence zombies of the same tier. It could strengthen its control range by devouring corpse cores. It could also refine corpse puppets. The corners of Chun Xian's mouth slowly lifted. Good stuff. If this ability were in the hands of an ordinary person, it would indeed be easy to suffer backlash. But in his hands, its value was enormous. With the Corpse King Seal, he could even build a zombie horde of his own. Although Chun Xian did not intend to rely on zombies, this trump card would be very useful at critical moments. Not far away, Dog Emperor finally broke free from the encirclement of a group of second-tier zombies and ran back, panting heavily. Several patches of fur on its body had been bitten bald, and even its tail had almost been chewed bare in one spot. As soon as it returned, it saw Chun Xian standing beside the black-robed man's corpse, a dark red glow flashing briefly across his body. Dog Emperor's eyes shrank. For some reason, it suddenly felt that the master before it had become even more dangerous. If the previous Chun Xian was a cold and noble ice dragon, then now, there was also a chilling aura about him like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Dog Emperor swallowed. Good thing this dog lord knows when to submit. Otherwise, even if I really got stewed, I wouldn't be wronged. Chun Xian glanced at the chaotic zombie horde and raised his hand. The Corpse King Seal activated. An invisible wave spread outward. The first-tier zombies nearby, which had originally been violent and restless, suddenly stopped moving. They stood blankly in place, like puppets waiting for orders. Dog Emperor widened its eyes. Woof! What's going on? Why are these zombies obeying now? A satisfied look appeared in Chun Xian's eyes. He could now control all zombies below third tier. However, the number he could control was limited. With his current third-tier strength, he could at most stably control 2,000 first-tier zombies, or 2 to 300 second-tier zombies. Any more than that would place a burden on his mind. But it was enough for now. Chun Xian looked at Dog Emperor. Stupid dog, stop spacing out. Collect the crystal cores. Dog Emperor immediately perked up. Right. Crystal cores everywhere. It happily ran toward the place where the corpse puppet had shattered and began digging through the remains for crystal cores. Chun Xian, meanwhile, controlled a portion of the nearby zombies and made them kill each other. Puff, puff, puff. One zombie after another fell. Crystal cores kept rolling out. The feeling was very strange. Before, when killing zombies, he had to do it himself. Now, he only needed a single thought to make them slaughter each other. The efficiency was ridiculously high. Of course, Chun Xian also knew very well that the Corpse King Seal was not omnipotent. If he encountered higher-tier zombies or existences with powerful mental strength, the control effect would be greatly weakened. But for now, it was already enough. Soon, most of the zombie horde in the valley had been cleared out. Chen Xian did not care for those first-tier crystal cores, so most of them were left to Dog Emperor. As for the second-tier crystal cores, he kept some and gave the rest to Dog Emperor. The third-tier corpse puppet crystal core and the special corpse core left behind by the black-robed man were placed by Chen Xian into his spatial ring. These things were more valuable, especially the black-robed man's special corpse core. Perhaps it could further strengthen the Corpse King seal. Half an hour later, the valley became quiet again. Only corpses and black blood covered the ground. Dog Emperor lay beside a pile of crystal cores, its dog face full of satisfaction. This round had been a massive profit. Chen Xian stood on the high platform, gazing into the distance. The black-robed man's words before death still echoed in his mind. The apocalypse was not an accident. They have already seen you. Chen Xian's gaze was deep. It seemed that the apocalypse in this life was even more complicated than what he had understood in his previous life. But it did not matter. Whoever dared block his path, he would simply kill them. He raised his head and looked at the gloomy sky, the corners of his mouth curling into a cold smile. This is getting more and more interesting. A dog bark echoed through the valley. Purple lightning instantly exploded from within the cave. Boom! The rubble around the cave entrance was blasted apart by lightning, scattering in every direction. Dog Emperor slowly walked out of the cave. Its originally messy black fur had now become much smoother, and faint purple arcs of lightning flickered at the tips. Its body was almost twice as large as before. Its limbs were thick and powerful. Its claws were as sharp as blades. On its forehead, a faint purple lightning mark had even appeared. Those dog eyes were also far more intelligent than before, faintly carrying a trace of authority. If one ignored its tail, which wagged from time to time, it truly had a bit of the future Dog Emperor's presence. Chen Xian sized it up from head to toe and nodded in satisfaction. Third tier. Not bad. Dog Emperor raised its head, its tail wagging wildly. Woof, woof, woof. Its barking was filled with excitement. Third tier. It had finally broken through to third tier. The power of its purple sky divine thunder was also several times stronger than before. Dog Emperor felt that it was now terrifyingly powerful. If it encountered that third-tier Corpse King from earlier again, although it might not necessarily win, it definitely would not be reduced to clearing out small fries from the side like before. It could exchange a few blows head-on too. Of course, that was assuming it was not fighting Chen Xian. Dog Emperor secretly glanced at Chen Xian. Then it immediately suppressed the swelling confidence in its heart. No, it could not get carried away. This master was too abnormal. Even a third-tier Corpse King had been killed by him. It had only just broken through, so it was better to behave. Chen Xian could naturally sense the changes in Dog Emperor's emotions. After soul control, although he could not completely read all of Dog Emperor's thoughts, he could sense its general mood. Excitement, agitation, and a tiny bit of inflated confidence. Then, it quickly became cowardly again. The corners of Chen Xian's mouth lifted slightly. This stupid dog was quite sensible. Finished breaking through? Woof! Dog Emperor immediately nodded. Chen Xian said indifferently, "Then protect me next. I'm going to absorb the Corpse King Crystal Core." Hearing the words Corpse King Crystal Core, Dog Emperor's eyes could not help but light up again. But this time, it quickly lowered its head and pretended that it was not thinking anything. Chen Xian glanced at it. "Stop coveting it. You can't eat this thing. If you forcefully absorb it, it might burst you apart." Dog Emperor blinked. "Really?" Chen Xian did not explain further. He took out that golden yellow Corpse King Crystal Core. The crystal core felt icy cold in his hand. The energy contained within it was extremely special. It was different from the chaotic and violent energy of ordinary zombie crystal cores. The energy inside the Corpse King Crystal Core was more condensed and also more domineering. It was like a crown compressed to the utmost limit. Within it, there were faint interwoven auras of dominion, brutality, slaughter, evolution, and more. Chen Xian sat cross-legged. Dog Emperor immediately walked to the side and vigilantly scanned the surroundings. This time, it guarded him with exceptional seriousness. Not only because Chen Xian had used soul control on it, but also because it understood that following Chun Xian truly brought it enormous benefits. 200 second tier crystal cores. He had given them away just like that. Although this master was a little fierce, liked kicking dogs a little too much, and called it by unpleasant names, he was genuinely generous. Following him was far better than wandering around on its own and picking up scraps. Dog Emperor was very realistic. Since it had already acknowledged him as master, then it would acknowledge him properly. Chun Xian closed his eyes. The Corpse King crystal core floated above his palm. He did not use his Ice Dragon ability to absorb it. Instead, he activated the soul control ability he had just seized. On his abdomen, that black eye-like pattern grew faintly warm. The next moment, the energy within the Corpse King crystal core was slowly drawn out. Boom. The instant the energy entered his body, it was as if a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood exploded inside Chun Xian's mind. The roars of countless zombies surged madly into his consciousness. Slaughter, devouring, evolution, submission. Chaotic wills crashed against Chun Xian's spirit one after another. If an ordinary psychic-type ability user absorbed this Corpse King crystal core, they would probably be instantly contaminated by the residual will of the Corpse King, or even turn into a half-human, half-zombie monster. But Chun Xian was different. He was a reincarnator. In his previous life, he had struggled through the apocalypse for many years. His will had long since been tempered to an extremely tenacious degree. Moreover, he also had the mythic-grade Ice Dragon ability within his body. The moment the Ice Dragon aura emerged, those chaotic Corpse King wills seemed to encounter their natural enemy and were instantly suppressed. Chun Xian snorted coldly. A mere lingering will inside a crystal core dares to resist. The soul control ability activated. The black eye-like pattern seemed to open, beginning to crazily devour the spiritual origin inside the Corpse King crystal core. Time slowly passed. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. The aura around Chun Xian became increasingly strange. On one side was the bone-piercing extreme cold of the Ice Dragon's power. On the other was the cold, profound power of soul control. Two completely different powers circulated independently within his body, yet did not interfere with each other. Dog Emperor lay not far away, growing more and more alarmed the longer it watched. It could feel Chun Xian's aura continuously strengthening, especially on the spiritual level. That invisible oppressive feeling made even it, having just broken through to 3rd tier, feel somewhat breathless. Dog Emperor quietly shifted backward a little. Too frightening for a dog. Suddenly, a faint black shadow appeared between Chun Xian's brows. It was not a tattoo, but a phenomenon formed when spiritual power condensed to a certain degree. The next second, he abruptly opened his eyes. Boom. An invisible spiritual impact instantly spread outward. The few remaining 1st-tier zombies nearby had still been wandering around, but after being swept by this spiritual wave, they all froze at once. Immediately afterward, their heads exploded at the same time. Bang, bang, bang. Black blood splattered everywhere. Dog Emperor trembled all over, its fur standing on end. This was not lightning, nor was it ice. This was pure spiritual attack. Silent and soundless. Impossible to guard against. A trace of satisfaction flashed through Chun Xian's eyes. Soul control ability, 2nd tier. A single 3rd-tier Corpse King crystal core had directly raised his soul control ability from 1st tier to 2nd tier, and it had also allowed Chun Xian to master spiritual impact. Although the current range of spiritual impact was not too large, and it could only cause brief effects on experts of the same tier, it was already a lethal attack against ordinary 1st-tier and 2nd-tier zombies or ability users, especially those with weak spirits. With a single glance from Chun Xian, he could make their consciousness collapse. Aside from that, both the number and strength of targets he could control with soul control had also increased. The current him could control more souls at the same time. Of course, Chun Xian would not casually control too many targets. The more he controlled, the greater the mental burden. He only needed to control key figures. For example, Dog Emperor. For example, certain valuable ability users in the future. Chun Xian stood and moved his neck. Although his body still felt somewhat fatigued, his mental state was better than ever before. He looked at Dog Emperor. Dog Emperor immediately stood up, its tail wagging rapidly. Woof woof. Master is awesome. Chun Xian smiled. Let's go. It's time to return to Subei City. Dog Emperor nodded and followed behind Qin Xian. One man and one dog left the valley. Behind them, corpses covered the ground. This valley, which had originally hidden a zombie tide of over 10,000, had now completely become a land of death. If the people of the 4th Military District saw this scene, they would probably be too shocked to speak. The zombie tide that they had risked their lives and still failed to hold back had been almost completely cleared out by Qin Xian and Dog Emperor. Of course, Qin Xian had no intention of telling them. There was no need. After leaving the valley, the sky had already darkened. Nights in the apocalypse were extremely dangerous. In the darkness, not only were zombies more active, but some mutated beasts would also come out to hunt. Qin Xian had originally planned to find a place to rest, but after walking only a short distance, he suddenly stopped. Dog Emperor also stopped with him, its ears standing up as a low growl sounded from its throat. There was movement in the woods ahead. Rustle, rustle. It sounded like someone dragging their feet forward. Qin Xian's gaze remained calm as the extreme cold sword slowly appeared in his hand. A moment later, several figures stumbled out of the woods. The one in front was a young soldier in camouflage. His body was covered in blood. His face was deathly pale. Behind him were two ordinary survivors, a middle-aged man and a girl around 17 or 18. The instant the three of them saw Qin Xian, they were first stunned. Then surprise burst from the soldier's eyes. Mr. Chun. Qin Xian raised his brows slightly. People from the 4th Military District? The soldier quickly nodded. Yes. I'm a scout under Regiment Commander Shui. We came out to investigate the movement of the zombie tide, but unexpectedly encountered a mutated beast attack. At this point, his voice trembled. The others in our squad are all dead. Qin Xian's expression did not change much. Death was far too normal in the apocalypse. He asked indifferently, "Where's the mutated beast?" Before the soldier could answer, a low roar suddenly came from deep within the woods. Roar. The next moment, a pair of scarlet eyes lit up in the darkness. A gray wolf nearly the size of a small calf slowly walked out. Bone spikes grew from its back. Fresh blood dripped from the corners of its mouth. It emitted the aura of a peak second-tier creature, a mutated gray wolf. The girl was so frightened that she hid behind the soldier, trembling all over. The middle-aged man's face was also deathly pale. The soldier forced himself to raise his gun, but even his hands were shaking. Qin Xian glanced at the gray wolf, not very interested. Peak second tier. To ordinary people, it was a nightmare. To the current him, it was not worth mentioning. Stupid dog. Qin Xian spoke calmly. Dog Emperor immediately stepped forward. When the mutated gray wolf saw Dog Emperor, it first froze. Immediately afterward, it instinctively sensed an intense threat and actually began to retreat. Dog Emperor was now a third-tier ability beast. As both were canines, the suppression of bloodline and level was extremely obvious. Dog Emperor raised its head, its dog eyes filled with arrogance. A mere little wolf dares act presumptuously before Dog Emperor? Purple sky divine thunder flashed across its body. Boom. Lightning descended instantly. The mutated gray wolf did not even have time to scream before it was blasted black all over. It collapsed to the ground, twitched twice, and went completely silent. The three survivors were all stunned, especially the girl. Her eyes widened greatly. A dog. One bolt of lightning. And it had instantly killed the monster that had chased them all the way here? Qin Xian walked over and took out the crystal core from the gray wolf's body. A second-tier beast crystal core. It still had some value. He casually tossed it to Dog Emperor. Your reward. Dog Emperor caught it in one bite, happily wagging its tail. The soldier swallowed and looked at Qin Xian with even greater awe. Mr. Chun, are you heading back to the military district? Qin Xian said indifferently. No. The soldier froze for a moment. Then can you help us? Before he finished speaking, he stopped. Because Qin Xian's gaze was very cold. He suddenly remembered that Regiment Commander Shui had once said. This Qin Xian was very strong. But he was not from the military district. And he was certainly not a benevolent savior. If they wanted his help, they needed to pay a price. After hesitating for a moment, the soldier gritted his teeth and said, Mr. Chun, we discovered a large shopping mall warehouse. There is a lot of food and medicine inside. But there are also many zombies and mutated beasts nearby. If you are willing to take us back to the safe zone, I can tell you the location. A large shopping mall warehouse. Food and medicine? Chen Xian's eyes moved slightly. Those were exactly the things he needed right now. There was not much food in his spatial ring. He indeed needed to replenish supplies. And medicine was also hard currency in the apocalypse. Even if he did not use it himself, he could trade it. Chen Xian looked at the soldier. Is the location accurate? The soldier quickly nodded. Accurate. Our squad escaped from there. I have a map on me. Chen Xian extended his hand. The soldier immediately took out a bloodstained map from his clothes and handed it over. Chen Xian unfolded it and glanced at it. The location was in Subei City's western district. Before the apocalypse, there had indeed been a large commercial complex there, and the underground storage area was not small. If it had not been emptied by survivors, there should be a lot of supplies. Chen Xian put away the map. Fine. I'll take you to the outskirts of the military district. You go in yourselves. The soldier was overjoyed. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Chen Xian said nothing more and turned toward the direction of the 4th military district. The three hurriedly followed. Dog Emperor walked at the very back, occasionally turning its head to glance at the girl. The girl was somewhat afraid of its gaze, yet also somewhat curious. She asked in a small voice, Can it understand human speech? Dog Emperor immediately raised its head. That look seemed to say, obviously. The girl shrank her neck in fright. Chen Xian said calmly, Not only can it understand, it also holds grudges. Dog Emperor, woof. Who holds grudges? This Lord Dog Emperor is clearly broad-minded. The girl quickly shut her mouth and did not dare ask again. Half an hour later, Chen Xian brought the three to the outskirts of the 4th military district. In the distance, patrol soldiers discovered them, and people immediately came to receive them. The scout saluted Chen Xian once more. Mr. Chen, thank you for saving our lives. Chen Xian waved his hand. It was just a transaction. After saying that, he took Dog Emperor and turned away. This time, he did not linger. His goal was very clear. The large shopping mall warehouse in the western district. Supplies, crystal cores, and possibly a survivor faction. To Chen Xian, what came next was another harvest. Night deepened. Outside the residential building, the occasional low roar of zombies could be heard. But after the great battle during the day, the number of nearby zombies had already decreased significantly. For the short term, there was not much danger. Inside the room, Li Kai, Zhang Yun, Ho Liang, Da Zhuang, and Li Han sat together in a circle. More than 100 crystal cores were placed on the table. The crystal cores emitted a faint glow, appearing especially eye-catching in the dim room. If placed before the apocalypse, these things would look like cheap glass beads. But in the current apocalypse, these crystal cores were treasures countless people dreamed of obtaining. They could increase an ability user's strength. They could also allow ordinary people to awaken abilities. Of course, ordinary people absorbing crystal cores to awaken abilities did not have a 100% success rate. Some people, after absorbing crystal cores, could only strengthen their bodies and could not awaken an ability. There were even some people whose bodies were too weak to withstand the crystal core's energy and instead suffered backlash. However, Li Kai had great confidence in his brothers. The 5 of them had grown up together since childhood, and none of them had poor physiques. Especially Da Zhuang. That guy's strength had always far surpassed ordinary people. Perhaps the ability he awakened would not be weak either. Let's begin, Li Kai said in a deep voice. Zhang Yun and the other 3 looked at one another and nodded. Each of them picked up a first-tier crystal core. Following the method Li Kai had taught them earlier, they held the crystal cores in their palms and began trying to absorb the energy within. Soon, the expressions of all 4 began to change. The energy inside the crystal cores flowed into their bodies through their palms. That energy was not gentle. In fact, it was somewhat violent. Zhang Yun's brows were tightly furrowed, and cold sweat quickly seeped from his forehead. Ho Liang's body trembled slightly, his face a little pale. Da Zhuang's reaction was the most exaggerated. Not long after he began absorbing, the muscles on his body actually started to swell. Blue veins bulged on his arms, as if some terrifying power was rampaging through his body. As for Li Han, his reaction was the calmest. His eyes were closed, his breathing steady, as if he had entered some kind of special state. Li Kai sat at the side, nervously watching them. Although he himself had already awakened an ability, this was also the first time he had personally watched others awaken. Time passed little by little. 10 minutes. 20 minutes. Half an hour. Suddenly, Dajwang was the first to open his eyes. Boom! The ground beneath him suddenly trembled. Immediately afterward, the muscles on Dajwang's body swelled once again, and his entire person seemed to turn into a small mountain. He had already been nearly 1.9 meters tall, and now he looked even more burly. A heavy, savage aura emanated from him. Dajwang lowered his head and looked at his hands, his eyes full of shock. Brother Kai, I think I awakened. Li Kai's eyes lit up. What ability? Dajwang scratched his head and said somewhat honestly, I feel like my strength has become especially great, and my body seems much tougher too. As he spoke, he casually picked up an iron rod nearby. Crack! The iron rod was forcibly bent by his bare hands. Everyone's eyes instantly widened. Damn, Dajwang, isn't your strength way too ridiculous? Ho Liang could not help but exclaim. A trace of surprise flashed through Li Kai's eyes. It should be a strength enhancement ability, and its grade isn't low. Dajwang grinned. Hee, then I'll tank the front from now on. As soon as he finished speaking, Ho Liang, who was beside him, suddenly opened his eyes. His figure actually blurred in place. The next moment, he appeared directly by the window. What the hell? Ho Liang himself was startled. How did I get over here? Zhang Yin also looked shocked. Monkey, you were so fast just now. Ho Liang lowered his head and looked at his legs, then tried moving again. Whoosh! His figure flashed again, returning from the window to stand before everyone. Although the distance was not far, his speed was extremely fast. Li Kai immediately laughed. A speed-type ability. Monkey, that really suits you. Ho Liang's nickname was Skinny Monkey. His movements had always been agile, and now that he had awakened a speed-type ability, it was like giving wings to a tiger. Ho Liang was so excited that he rubbed his hands together. Good grief, who can catch me in the future? Don't get carried away. Li Kai glared at him. With your current bit of strength, you'll still be in danger if you run into a second-tier zombie. Ho Liang laughed awkwardly. I know, Brother Kai. A while later, Zhang Yin opened his eyes. He did not make any obvious movements like Dajwang and Ho Liang. But as he opened his eyes, the air in the room seemed to distort slightly for an instant. Li Kai keenly sensed that something was off. Zhang Yin, what did you awaken? Zhang Yin frowned, seeming to feel out his own ability. A moment later, he slowly raised his hand. A wisp of pale green wind spun in his palm. It seems to be wind. As his voice fell, that wisp of wind instantly transformed into a small wind blade and flew toward the wall. Hiss! A shallow mark was cut into the wall. Although its power was not strong, he had only just awakened. Li Kai was instantly overjoyed. Elemental ability. Zhang Yun, your ability isn't simple. Elemental abilities were extremely sought after in the apocalypse. Whether in destructive power or growth potential, they were much stronger than ordinary enhancement-type abilities. A smile also appeared on Zhang Yun's face. Looks like my luck isn't bad. At this moment, among the four, only Li Han had yet to wake. Everyone's gaze turned toward him. Li Han still had his eyes closed. There were no obvious energy fluctuations around him. He looked as if he had fallen asleep. Ho Liang whispered, Han, he didn't fail to awaken, did he? Li Kai frowned. Don't talk nonsense. Dajwang also lowered his voice. Han has the best brain. Maybe the ability he awakens will be the most special. No one spoke again. They waited quietly. Nearly another 10 minutes passed. Li Han finally opened his eyes. At that instant, a silver-white stream of data seemed to flash through the depths of his eyes. It quickly vanished again. Li Kai hurriedly asked, Li Han, how is it? Li Han pushed up his glasses. After a moment of silence, he said, I awakened. What ability? Li Han did not answer immediately. He looked at the crystal cores on the table, his gaze becoming somewhat strange. A moment later, he said, I can sense the strength of the energy inside these crystal cores. The others were stunned. Li Han continued, the energy inside those two second-tier crystal cores is much stronger than the first-tier ones, but one of them has more impurities, while the other is relatively pure. Li Kai's gaze instantly sharpened. A perception-type ability? Li Han shook his head. More than that. He looked at Li Kai. Brother Kai, the ability energy in your body has not fully recovered yet. You've recovered about 30%. Li Kai's expression changed. Because Li Han was exactly right. He had absorbed several first-tier crystal cores earlier, and his ability had indeed only recovered about 30%. Li Han then looked at Dazhuang. Dazhuang's ability leans towards strength and defense. His burst power is strong, but his speed is slow. Next, he looked at Ho Liang. Monkey's speed ability consumes energy very quickly. With his current energy reserves, he can at most burst continuously a dozen or so times. Finally, he looked at Zhang Yun. Zhang Yun's wind-type ability is currently still very weak, but his growth potential should be higher than Monkey's and Dazhuang's. The room instantly fell silent. Ho Liang swallowed. "Han, what kind of eyes are those?" Li Han thought for a moment and said, "I'm not sure either, but I feel that I can analyze energy flow, determine a target's weakness, and even deduce certain combat trajectories." A sharp light flashed through Li Kai's eyes. A support-type ability. And its grade definitely isn't low. Li Han nodded. It should be a mental perception and analysis type. For now, I'll call it insight. Hearing this, Li Kai could not help but laugh loudly. Good. Excellent. All 5 of us brothers have awakened abilities. Zhang Yun, Dazhuang, Ho Liang, and the others were also full of excitement. This was the apocalypse. Having an ability and not having one were completely different concepts. Ordinary people were far too fragile before zombies. But once they awakened an ability, they possessed the foundation to establish themselves in the apocalypse. Li Kai took a deep breath, looked at the 4 brothers before him, and said in a deep voice, "Brother Qin gave us this opportunity. We absolutely cannot waste it. Starting today, we'll use this family housing compound as our foundation and establish a shelter of our own. First, we'll rescue the people nearby who are still alive. Then we'll clear out zombies, gather supplies, and improve our strength." Hearing this, the others nodded one after another. Dazhuang grinned and said, "Brother Kai, whatever you say, I'll do." Ho Liang also said with a cheeky smile, "Anyway, I'm following Brother Kai." Zhang Yun nodded. "I have no objections." Li Han pushed up his glasses and said calmly, "If we want to establish a shelter, we must first solve 3 problems." Li Kai looked at him. "Which 3? Li Han raised 3 fingers. "First, a safe area. Although this family housing compound has walls, the gate is too thin. It can't stop a large-scale zombie tide. It must be reinforced. Second, food and water. There are quite a few residents here, so short-term supplies should be enough. But long-term, it definitely won't work. We need to organize people to search nearby supermarkets and warehouses. Third, order. Saving people is easy. Managing people is hard. Once the number of survivors increases, internal conflicts will definitely appear. We must set rules in advance." After hearing Li Han's words, everyone fell silent. Although they had courage, they had to admit that Li Han was right. Fighting and killing zombies was one thing. Establishing a shelter was another. Li Kai nodded. "Han, you're the smart one. From now on, I'll leave the shelter planning to you." Li Han did not refuse. "Fine." Li Kai then looked at the others. "Zhang Yun, your wind-type ability is suitable for mid to long-range attacks. From now on, you'll be responsible for support and reconnaissance. Monkey, you're the fastest. You'll be responsible for scouting routes and delivering messages. Dazhuang, you're tough and sturdy. Frontline combat will depend on you. As for me, I'll be responsible for main attacks and overall coordination." Everyone responded one after another. At this moment, the Subei 5 tigers truly began to take shape. Although they were still very weak right now, so weak that any random second-tier zombie could throw them into a life-or-death crisis. In the future, however, they would become renowned powerhouses in Subei City. Of course, Qin Xian did not know any of this. Even if he did, he would not care much. On the other side, riding Dog Emperor, Qin Xian had already arrived near the Wernima supermarket. This supermarket covered a very large area. Before the apocalypse, there had been no shortage of people here every day. Precisely because of this, after the apocalypse erupted, the number of zombies here was extremely high. Dense clusters of zombies wandered in front of the supermarket entrance. At a rough glance, there were at least over 1,000. Among them were quite a few second-tier zombies. Qin Xian even faintly sensed a third-tier aura. Dog Emperor stopped, sniffed with its nose, and let out a low sound from its throat. Woof! Qin Xian sat on Dog Emperor's back, his gaze turned toward the depths of the supermarket. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, A third-tier zombie? Interesting. If it had been before, a third-tier zombie might still have been troublesome. But now that Chun Xian's strength had greatly increased, a third-tier zombie could no longer be considered much of a threat to him. Instead, the supplies inside this supermarket interested him more. Chun Xian patted Dog Emperor's head. Go. Clear the area. Lightning flickered in Dog Emperor's eyes. The next second, its massive body suddenly charged forward. Purple lightning instantly exploded. Boom. The zombie horde at the supermarket entrance was instantly torn open by lightning. Chun Xian leaped off Dog Emperor's back. The extreme cold sword appeared in his hand. Icy cold air spread from beneath his feet. The ground instantly frosted over. Since I'm here, I might as well clean this place out. As his voice fell, countless ice spikes slowly condensed behind him. Cold light flickered. Killing intent surged. Zhang Chao completely broke down. The intense pain in his body and the humiliation in his mind were like two blades stabbing into his brain at the same time. His eyes widened, his face deathly pale. Blue veins bulged on his forehead, and inhuman screams came from his mouth. Kill me! Kill me already! He roared madly. At this moment, how could he still have that high and mighty appearance from before? He was like a wild dog whose teeth had been pulled out. Wretched, ugly, pitiful. But there was not a trace of pity in Lin Zixuan's eyes. She slowly stood up, the long blade in her hand still dripping blood. Kill you? That would be letting you off too easily. After saying that, she raised her hand and slashed again. This slash landed on Zhang Chao's thigh. Flesh split open. Zhang Chao once again let out a shrill scream. The survivors in the warehouse all turned deathly pale with fright. Some lowered their heads, not daring to look anymore. Some trembled all over, their stomachs churning. There were even a few who vomited on the spot. But Chun Xian remained calm from beginning to end. Dog Emperor lay to the side and yawned. To it, this kind of scene was not interesting at all. It was not as tasty as Crystal Cores. Lin Zixuan slashed again and again. Every strike avoided the vital points. She was in no hurry to kill Zhang Chao. She wanted him to slowly experience pain. She wanted to return everything she had suffered these past few days 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Zhang Chao's screams grew weaker and weaker. In the end, only twitching and faint wails remained. Lin Zixuan's body was covered in blood. Her originally beautiful face was now stained with blood, paired with her cold and numb eyes. It actually carried a strange, eerie beauty. Chun Xian stood at the side and said indifferently, "That's about enough. If you drag this out any longer, he'll die from blood loss." Lin Zixuan paused. She lowered her head and looked at Zhang Chao on the ground, who no longer looked human. Then, she slowly crouched down and whispered by Zhang Chao's ear, "In your next life, don't be human." As her words fell, the long blade pierced into Zhang Chao's heart. Zhang Chao's body suddenly stiffened. Then he completely lost all signs of life. Lin Zixuan pulled out the blade and stood in place without speaking for a long time. The warehouse was deathly silent. The survivors looked at Lin Zixuan with eyes full of fear. This woman had gone mad. She had truly gone mad. But no one dared to speak, because they were even more afraid of Chun Xian. Someone who could casually nail Zhang Chao to the ground was definitely not an existence they could provoke. Chun Xian looked at Lin Zixuan and asked, "Anyone else?" Lin Zixuan slowly turned around. Her gaze swept over every person in the warehouse. Those whom her eyes passed over all lowered their heads one after another, not daring to meet her gaze at all. In the end, her gaze landed on Wang Ji. Wang Ji's body trembled. His face instantly turned deathly pale. Zixuan. His voice shook as he barely squeezed out a smile uglier than crying. Zixuan, I had my reasons. I had no choice either. Zhang Chao was an ability user. I couldn't resist him. If I hadn't listened to him, he would have killed me. I just wanted to survive. Zixuan, you can understand me, right?" Wang Ji knelt on the ground and crawled toward Lin Zixuan little by little. His eyes were full of pleading. If this had been before the apocalypse, Lin Zixuan might have softened. After all, this man had once been someone she deeply loved. She had once imagined marrying him. She had imagined having a warm little home with him. She had imagined having a child with him in the future. But now, looking at that familiar face before her, Lin Zixuan only felt disgust. Disgust that reached deep into her bones. Zhang Chao was an evil ghost. But what about Wang Ji? Wang Ji was the person who had personally pushed her into hell. Perhaps he had not done it all himself. But his cowardice, betrayal, and lowliness made her hate him even more than Zhang Chao. Lin Zixuan walked step by step until she stood before Wang Ji. Wang Ji hurriedly kowtowed. Zixuan, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please forgive me, all right? From now on, I'll definitely protect you. I'm still a doctor. I'm useful. Ask this lord to spare me. I'll definitely be useful. As he spoke, he looked toward Chun Xian again. My lord, I was an attending physician at a top-tier hospital. I can treat illnesses. I can perform surgery. If you spare my life, I'll definitely be able to help you. Hearing this, Chun Xian's expression remained calm. A doctor? In the apocalypse, that indeed had value. Especially doctors from proper hospitals. In many shelters, they were highly sought after. However, to Chun Xian, that was all. His physical constitution far surpassed ordinary people's, and he also had extreme ice protecting his body. Ordinary injuries were of little meaning to him. Moreover, he hated traitors, especially trash like this, who handed his own woman over to someone else. Chun Xian said indifferently, Your life isn't mine to decide. It's hers. Hearing this, Wang Ji froze completely. He abruptly looked at Lin Zixuan. Zixuan, I really did love you. Have you forgotten? We used to be so good together. You said you would marry me. You can't kill me. You can't. Before he could finish speaking, Lin Zixuan suddenly laughed. That smile was very faint, yet it made Wang Ji's heart turn cold. That's right. I really did want to marry you before. So I was blind. Wang Ji's face turned deathly pale. Lin Zixuan slowly raised her blade. Wang Ji, do you know? When Zhang Chao tortured me, the person I hated most wasn't him. It was you. I looked at you again and again, hoping you would stand up. Even if you had died in front of me, I wouldn't hate you this much. But you didn't. You knelt. You begged him. You even helped him hold me down. At this point, Lin Zixuan's voice finally trembled slightly. It was not weakness. It was hatred pushed to the extreme. Wang Ji, from that moment on, you were already dead in my heart. Wang Ji frantically shook his head. No, it wasn't like that. I just wanted to live. I wasn't wrong. It's the apocalypse. Who doesn't want to live? I only. Uffed. The long blade pierced into his chest. Wang Ji's words came to an abrupt stop. His eyes widened as he stared at Lin Zixuan in disbelief. It seemed that even in death, he could not believe that this woman who had once loved him deeply would truly kill him. Lin Zixuan leaned close to his ear and whispered, You did indeed want to live. So I'll send you to die. The blade twisted. Wang Ji's body convulsed violently twice before collapsing to the ground, never to move again. Lin Zixuan stood in place, gripping the long blade. She looked at Wang Ji's corpse, but there were no tears in her eyes. Her tears had already dried up long ago. Starting today, the Lin Zixuan of the past was dead. The one who survived was another her. Chun Xian watched this scene, a hint of satisfaction appearing in his eyes. Ruthless enough. Decisive enough. No hesitation or muddiness. Only this kind of person was suited for the apocalypse. He spoke calmly. Anyone else? Lin Zixuan turned around and looked toward the survivors huddled in the corner. Among the crowd, several men instantly turned pale. They were not Zhang Chao's security guard underlings. But over the past few days, in order to survive, they had also done plenty to curry favor with Zhang Chao. Some had helped watch over the other survivors. Some had robbed others of food. Some had even helped Zhang Chao bully women. These people had originally thought that by hiding among the crowd, they could muddle through. But Lin Zixuan remembered. She remembered everything. Them. Lin Zixuan raised her blade and pointed at 5 men in the crowd. They deserved to die too. The 5 immediately panicked. No, Miss Lin, we didn't. Zhang Chao forced us. We had no choice either. That's right, we just wanted to survive. Please spare us. The men knelt on the ground and continuously kowtowed. Chun Xian did not ask further. He merely looked at Dog Emperor. Deal with them. Dog Emperor lazily stood up. Purple arcs of lightning flickered across its body. When the 5 men saw this, they were so frightened their souls nearly left their bodies. They turned and tried to run. But how could they possibly outrun Dog Emperor? Boom. 5 bolts of purple sky divine thunder descended. 5 charred corpses fell to the ground. A faint burnt smell spread through the air. The remaining survivors were so frightened they did not even dare breathe loudly. Some knelt on the ground, desperately kowtowing. "My lord, spare us. We didn't do anything. We were really just locked up here. Please don't kill us." Chun Xian swept an indifferent glance over them. "I have no interest in killing you." Hearing this, everyone immediately felt as if they had received a pardon. But before they could breathe a sigh of relief, Chun Xian spoke again. "However, the supplies here belong to me now. You may leave." Everyone froze. Leave? There were zombies everywhere outside. Where could they go? But they also understood that Chun Xian was not discussing this with them. Being able to stay alive was already tremendous fortune. A middle-aged man mustered up his courage and carefully asked, "My lord, then, can we take a little food with us?" Chun Xian glanced at him. The middle-aged man trembled all over in fright and quickly lowered his head. I was just asking." Chun Xian said calmly. "Each person may take one backpack. How much you can carry depends on yourselves." Everyone was instantly overjoyed. "Thank you, my lord. Thank you, my lord." Chun Xian ignored them after that. They were only a group of ordinary people. Whether he killed them or not did not matter. He was no savior, nor was he interested in taking in these burdens. Giving each of them a backpack of food was already extra kindness. Lin Zixuan stood at the side, her body swaying slightly. She had suffered torment these past few days and had personally killed people. Both her body and mind had reached their limits. Chun Xian kicked the coat on the ground toward her. "You can put it on now." Lin Zixuan lowered her head and looked at it. After a moment of silence, she bent down, picked up the coat, and draped it over herself. She raised her head and looked at Chun Xian. "From today onward, my life is yours." Chun Xian smiled faintly. "Remember what you said." Lin Zixuan nodded. "I won't forget." Chun Xian looked at her, then suddenly raised his hand. A first-tier crystal core landed in Lin Zixuan's hand. "Absorb it." Lin Zixuan froze. "This is something that can allow you to awaken an ability." Hearing this, Lin Zixuan's eyes focused sharply. "Awaken an ability?" She looked at the crystal core in her hand. Finally, a strong fluctuation appeared deep in her eyes. Power. What she desired most right now was power. If she had possessed power earlier, she would never have fallen to this state. If she had possessed power earlier, Zhang Chao and those people would never have been able to touch her. Lin Zixuan gripped the crystal core tightly. "How?" Chun Xian said indifferently. "Close your eyes, sense the energy inside, and absorb it. The process will hurt a little. Whether you succeed depends on yourself." Lin Zixuan did not hesitate at all. She immediately sat cross-legged. She closed her eyes and began absorbing the crystal core's energy. Chun Xian stood nearby and watched quietly. He was very curious. What ability had that ninth-tier empress from his previous life awakened? Soon, Lin Zixuan's body trembled slightly. The energy within the crystal core poured into her body. Her face turned pale, and fine beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. But she gritted her teeth and endured from beginning to end, not letting out a single cry of pain. This endurance made Chun Xian's eyes show a trace of appreciation. Not bad. A moment later, a cold aura suddenly emanated from Lin Zixuan's body. It was not ice. It was a darker, sharper, more bizarre aura. Like a shadow, yet also like a blade. The lights inside the warehouse flickered slightly. The shadow beneath her feet actually began to distort. The next moment, that shadow seemed to come alive, slowly rising from the ground. It transformed into a pitch-black shadow blade. Chun Xian's eyes moved slightly. A shadow-type ability? No, not merely a shadow type. That shadow blade carried an extremely strong killing aura. It was as if it had been born for assassination. Lin Zixuan slowly opened her eyes. A pitch-black light flashed deep within her pupils. The crystal core in her hand had also completely turned into powder. She raised her hand. The shadow beneath her feet transformed into a short blade and hovered above her palm. Lin Zixuan looked at that shadow blade and said softly, "I awakened." Chun Xian asked, "What ability?" Lin Zixuan sensed it for a moment, then slowly spoke. "SSS grade ability. Shadow Judgment." That ruin was called the Zongling Ruin. In Chun Xian's previous life, 3 months after the apocalypse began, the Zongling Ruin appeared and shook the entire Jiangnan region. Countless experts rushed over after hearing the news. Because inside that ruin, There were not only large numbers of crystal cores, spiritual herbs, and mutated beast materials, but even special treasures capable of increasing the quality of abilities. Back then, in order to fight for entry qualifications to the Zhongling Ruin, no one knew how many ability users died. And there were 3 keys to opening the Zhongling Ruin. One of them was precisely this ice green jade pendant before him. Chen Xian never expected that he would actually see one of the ruin keys in the hands of a small character like Zhang Dalong. It was truly an unexpected pleasant surprise. However, the surprise on Chen Xian's face quickly vanished and was replaced by calm. He raised his hand and beckoned. That jade pendant instantly flew out of Zhang Dalong's hand and landed in Chen Xian's palm. It felt cool and warm to the touch. Inside the jade pendant, there seemed to be a faint flow of energy. No mistake, this was the key to the Zhongling Ruin. Seeing Chen Xian accept the jade pendant, Zhang Dalong was instantly delighted and hurriedly said, "Brother, I've already given you the item. Can you let me go now?" Chen Xian played with the jade pendant in his hand and looked at him with a smile. "Where did you get this?" Zhang Dalong's eyes flickered, and he quickly said, "I picked it up." Chen Xian's smile did not change. "I don't like people lying to me." As soon as he finished speaking, an ice spike instantly shot out and directly pierced through Zhang Dalong's thigh. "Ah!" Zhang Dalong screamed and dropped to his knees with a thud. A bone-piercing chill continuously spread from the wound, making his entire leg feel as if it had lost all sensation. His face was deathly pale, and cold sweat poured down. I'll talk. Don't attack. I'll tell you everything," Chen Xian said indifferently. "Speak." Zhang Dalong swallowed and endured the pain as he said, "This thing wasn't something I picked up. I stole it from an old man. That old man looked around 70 or 80 years old, and there was a little girl with him. I thought the jade pendant in his hand looked strange, so I snatched it." Chen Xian raised his brows slightly. "Where are they?" Zhang Dalong's body trembled. Dead. Chen Xian's eyes turned slightly cold. "You killed them?" Zhang Dalong hurriedly shook his head. No, it wasn't me. It was zombies. At the time, we were surrounded by zombies. I pushed the old man and the little girl out to attract the zombies. That was how we managed to escape." At this point, Zhang Dalong seemed to realize he had said the wrong thing and hurriedly added, "I had no choice either. In the apocalypse, who doesn't want to live? Brother, you're so strong. You should understand me, right?" Chen Xian glanced at him. Understand? Of course he understood. In the apocalypse, there were far too many people who pushed others out to take the blow so they themselves could survive. Chen Xian had seen things 100 times more disgusting than this. But understanding did not mean sparing him. A person like Zhang Dalong could push others to their deaths today in order to live. Tomorrow, he could stab Chen Xian in the back. Moreover, he had already shown killing intent toward Chen Xian earlier. Keeping such a person alive was useless. Chen Xian continued asking, "Where did you encounter them?" "Not far ahead," Zhang Dalong hurriedly replied. "About 30 or so kilometers from here. There's a place called Qingshi Town. That's where we encountered the old man." Qingshi Town. Chen Xian silently remembered the name. If that old man had possessed one ruined key, perhaps he had known clues about the other 2 keys. Unfortunately, the man was already dead. However, that did not necessarily mean there would be no other gains. When he had time, he could go there and take a look. Chen Xian put away the jade pendant and said calmly, "Finished." Zhang Dalong froze. The next moment, intense unease surged in his heart. "Brother, I already gave you the item. You promised to spare my life earlier." Chen Xian looked at him with a faint smile. "When did I promise that?" Zhang Dalong's face instantly stiffened. After thinking carefully, Chen Xian indeed had never promised. He had only asked what the item was. "You?" Zhang Dalong was both shocked and furious. "Brat, you tricked me." Chen Xian smiled faintly. "So what if I did?" A vicious look flashed through Zhang Dalong's eyes. Since begging was useless, he could only risk his life. "You want to kill me? I'll fight you to the death." As his words fell, a powerful aura suddenly erupted from Zhang Dalong. His skin rapidly began turning dark gold. His entire body looked like a metal statue. SS-grade ability, Vajra Tyrant Body. This was an extremely powerful physical type ability. Not only could it greatly increase strength, defense, and speed, but it could also make the body's hardness comparable to steel for a short period of time. Relying on this ability, Zhang Dalong had been able to rise rapidly in the early apocalypse and become a second-tier ability user. Unfortunately, the person he encountered was Chun Xian. Zhang Dalong roared and suddenly charged toward Chun Xian. His heavy footsteps landed on the ground with dull thuds. His speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already rushed in front of Chun Xian. His dark golden fist smashed down viciously, producing a piercing sound as it cut through the air. If this punch landed on an ordinary second-tier ability user, it could probably turn them directly into minced meat. But Chun Xian merely raised his hand calmly. The next second, a layer of ice crystals covered his palm. Bang! Fist and palm collided. A terrifying impact spread in all directions. Before the savage smile on Zhang Dalong's face could fully bloom, it instantly froze. Because he discovered that Chun Xian had not moved at all. Instead, an indescribable pain came from his fist. Crack! A crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. Zhang Dalong's entire right arm twisted and deformed directly. He screamed, and his entire body flew backward, smashing heavily into the jeep. The car body instantly dented inward. Impossible. Zhang Dalong looked at Chun Xian in terror. He was a second-tier ability user, and he even had an SS-grade physical type ability. How could he fail to withstand even one palm from Chun Xian? What kind of monster was this guy? Chun Xian slowly walked toward him and said indifferently, "An SS-grade ability is indeed not bad. Unfortunately, you're too weak." Zhang Dalong retreated in panic. "No, don't kill me. I'm willing to submit. I can be your dog." Hearing this, Dog Emperor, who was lying nearby, immediately became unhappy. Woof! It abruptly raised its head, eyes full of disdain. "What level are you? And you think you're worthy of being Master's dog?" Chun Xian smiled. "Sorry, my dog is much stronger than you." Zhang Dalong's face paled. Before he could speak, several ice spikes instantly descended, pinning his limbs firmly to the ground. "Ah!" Shrill screams sounded once again. Chun Xian did not kill him immediately. Instead, he turned to look at Lin Zixuan. "He's yours." Lin Zixuan's eyes were cold as she slowly stepped forward. Zhang Dalong's earlier words about violating her before killing her had already touched the darkest scar in her heart. She would not let this kind of person die easily. When Zhang Dalong saw Lin Zixuan approaching, he immediately remembered her earlier cold gaze, and his heart trembled violently. Don't come over." Lin Zixuan did not speak. She raised her hand and beckoned. A mass of pitch-black dark substance condensed in her palm. Soon, that darkness transformed into a short blade. Chun Xian watched this scene, interest appearing in his eyes. Lin Zixuan's Dark Monarch ability was growing faster than he had imagined. She was already able to condense dark matter into a weapon. Although it was still rough, this was already a huge improvement. Lin Zixuan crouched before Zhang Dalong and said coldly, "Earlier, how did you say you were going to kill me?" Zhang Dalong trembled all over. I just said it casually. I didn't really intend to." Uffed. The dark short blade directly pierced into his shoulder. Zhang Dalong screamed. Lin Zixuan remained expressionless. "I don't like listening to nonsense." After saying that, she twisted her wrist. Dark power exploded inside Zhang Dalong's body. This pain was not merely physical damage. It was like countless tiny blades cutting through his flesh. Zhang Dalong hurt so much that his whole body convulsed, and his eyeballs nearly popped out. "Kill me. Please kill me," Lin Zixuan said coldly. Too early. Chun Xian stood at the side and watched quietly. A moment later, he suddenly spoke. "Don't play too long. Save some strength. We still need to travel tomorrow." Lin Zixuan paused. "Yes, master." As her words fell, the dark short blade swept across Zhang Dalong's throat. Zhang Dalong's body stiffened, his eyes wide. Blood gushed out. Very soon, he completely lost all signs of life. Lin Zixuan stood up, and the killing intent around her gradually receded. Chun Xian walked to Zhang Dalong's corpse and dug out his crystal core. A second-tier crystal core. Its energy was fairly abundant. Afterward, he collected the crystal cores from the others as well. Although these crystal cores would not increase Chun Xian's strength by much, even a mosquito's leg was still meat. Moreover, Lin Zixuan was currently lacking resources. After cleaning up the battlefield, Chun Xian glanced at the black jeep. Although the vehicle had been dented by Zhang Dalong's impact, it could still be driven. However, it was not very useful to Chen. The highway was full of abandoned vehicles and zombies. Driving would be less convenient than riding Dog Emperor. He returned to the room. Lin Zixuan followed behind him. Dog Emperor, meanwhile, held several crystal cores in its mouth and contentedly laid down by the door. After returning to the room, Chen Xian took out the ice green jade pendant and examined it carefully. Lin Zixuan stood to the side and asked softly, "Master, is that thing very important?" Chen Xian nodded. "Very important. It's a ruin key." A trace of confusion flashed through Lin Zixuan's eyes. A ruin. Chen Xian stored the jade pendant into his spatial ring and slowly said, "After the apocalypse, it isn't only zombies and ability users that appear. The world itself will also change. Some special regions will give birth to ruins. Inside ruins, there are often large amounts of resources and even treasures powerful enough to change one's fate." Lin Zixuan looked thoughtful. "This jade pendant is the key to entering a ruin?" "Correct," Chen Xian said indifferently. "However, one key alone isn't enough. The Zongling ruin has a total of 3 keys. Only by gathering all 3 can the true core region be opened." Lin Zixuan's gaze shifted slightly. "Then where are the other 2? Chen Xian shook his head. "I don't know for now, but having the first one already gives us the initiative." In his previous life, when the Zongling ruin opened, the 3 keys had respectively fallen into the hands of 3 different factions. Later, all sides fought over them, resulting in heavy casualties. Chen Xian had been too weak in his previous life and had not qualified to participate at all. He had only heard that in the core region of the Zongling ruin, an extremely special spiritual plant appeared. It was called the Zongling fruit. The Zongling fruit could cleanse and refine an ability's origin. If one was lucky enough, it could even raise the quality of an ability by 1 grade. In his previous life, there had been an S-grade ability user who, after consuming its Zongling fruit, evolved their ability into SS grade. Their strength soared, and they later became an overlord of one region. In this life, Chen Xian naturally would not miss it. If he could obtain the Zongling fruit, whether he gave it to Lin Zixuan or used it to cultivate future trusted subordinates, it would have tremendous value. However, there was still some time before the Zongling ruin appeared. The most important thing right now was still the bloodvine in Lin family village. That was the top priority in Chen Xian's recent plans. Chen Xian looked at Lin Zixuan and said, "Continue cultivating. We set out early tomorrow morning." Lin Zixuan nodded respectfully. "Yes, master." She did not ask any further questions. To her, whatever Chen Xian told her to do, she would do. Chen Xian sat down cross-legged again and began absorbing the energy within the crystal cores. Lin Zixuan also sat in the corner, holding the second-tier crystal core that she had not yet fully absorbed, and continued cultivating. The room gradually fell silent. Only Dog Emperor lay at the doorway, occasionally chewing through a crystal core with a crisp crack. The night passed without incident. Early the next morning, the sky had just begun to brighten. Chen Xian opened his eyes. After a night of cultivation, the abilities within his body had become slightly more condensed. Although he was still some distance away from 4th tier, he was steadily improving. Lin Zixuan also ended her cultivation. Her aura was a little stronger than last night. Although she had not broken through to 2nd tier yet, she was already infinitely close to the peak of 1st tier. SSS grade abilities consumed a tremendous amount of resources, but once they grew, their combat power far surpassed others of the same tier. Chen Xian tossed her 2 first-tier crystal cores. "Continue absorbing them on the road." Lin Zixuan caught the crystal cores. "Thank you, master." Chen Xian patted Dog Emperor. "Let's go." Dog Emperor stood up and shook its body. Woof! Very soon, the 2 people and 1 dog left the service area and once again set out toward Anning County's Lin family village. Before leaving, Chen Xian looked back at the service area. The corpses from last night had already begun attracting nearby zombies. However, none of that had anything to do with him. In the apocalypse, people died every day. The deaths of Zhang Dalong and his men were merely an insignificant drop among countless deaths. To Chen Xian, the greatest harvest from last night was that ruin key. He looked toward the distant gray sky, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. "Zongling ruin. In this life, I'd like to see exactly what good things you're hiding inside."